This video is sponsored by the Design Mechanism, the makers of Mythras. Mythras is a registered trademark of the Design Mechanism Inc., used with permission, all rights reserved. All rights reserved, and we are here. Yeah, we are here. Welcome everybody. Can you just test your mics, please, guys?
Testing.
Yeah, excellent. So before we
Mr.
start,
Pickles didn't test his.
Yeah, I'm testing.
Light didn't come on.
So before we go any further, I just have to give a spoiler. Is that right? A spoiler alert. Just to let you know that we will be running the pre-made module called Agony and Ecstasy. So if you are keen to actually play this yourself, then please turn us off now. And if you're still here, then welcome. We are going to be playing some superhero games tonight. It's based on the Mythras rules, which demonstrates the pure flexibility of the rule system. So it's just the same as what we normally play in a fantasy setting, but in this time we have got three fearless superheroes. And to start off, I'm going to let the player say who they are and who they'll be playing tonight. And Mr. Chuggerwugger, since you're at the bottom, you can go first.
Hi guys, I'm Chuggerwugger and I am going to be playing Leonard Lau. Now, the more educated of you, especially those with an interest in robotics, nanotechnology and neuroscience, will almost certainly recognize that name. Leonard was formerly of the Institute of Nanoscience, Nanoscience at Delft University of Technology in the Netherlands, was at the forefront of his field in nanorobotics. His research in experimental construction nanites several years ago was so pioneering that it put his face on the front of the Time magazine, who described him as his research as being the breakthrough of the century. But that was 2 years ago, and many things have changed in that amount of time. Shortly after appearing on the front of Time, Leonard became ill, terminally ill. The doctors diagnosed him with an incurable form of blood cancer and gave him months to live. I know what you're thinking. If he was given months to live, and that was 2 years ago, then who is in front of you now? Well, Leonard wasn't prepared to give up that easily, so he used those 2 months wisely. The construct, which you see before you, has the consciousness, knowledge, and beliefs of Leonard Lau, stored on a complex neural network, which in turn is integrated into a bioorganic robot consisting primarily of construction nanites designed to simulate Leonard's original appearance. The real Leonard is currently in a cryogenic stasis chamber somewhere in Switzerland. His powers. Well, as you've probably heard from my brief introduction, he is made up out of very small robots, and he has the ability to integrate himself into other construction materials, only for a short period of time. Any of you who are familiar with Jewish folklore, Leonard is of course Jewish himself, will probably recognize the word golem. And it refers to an animated being magically created entirely from inanimate matter. So that is my character, Leonard Lau.
Fantastic. So you have the ability to go into new construction material, haven't you? And hence your token.
Yes.
That would be you on in a material, wouldn't
yes,
it?
The Leonard Lau, which you see before you, is actually it resembles what he would in real life before he was actually taken over by the blood cancer. But that is purely a construction nanite form.
Yeah, that's it. So fantastic. So next up is Mr. Pickles.
I'm Mr. Pickles, and I'm playing a far less prestigious character. I'm playing Lily Alex, also known as the Hare. She's just a all-town girl that loves sports and went to school, and then joined the army with her brother Franklin. And when he became critically injured, she volunteered for some test subject sciencey whatnots to see if she could help find a cure, because she's a loving, caring person, and had the unexpected side effect of giving her super speed. So she's got to go fast, and that's what she is all about: acting without thinking, and keeping her brother safe, as well as being that soldier protecting the world and humanity, and actually just mostly Gemini City. And that is Lily Alex the Hare. She's got to go fast. And passing on to Medivac.
Excellent. Medivac, go for it.
Hello, everybody. I'm Medivac, and tonight I'm playing Elijah Evan. Now, he was an orphan raised in the ossuary. He was an orphanage at a very young age. And when he was there, he'd learnt martial arts and how to defend himself, which kept him out of trouble. And through his youth, that's a focus. It gave him focus and a direction to follow. As he was growing up, he went into a local trade, a butchery. So he became a butcher. And that served him well until one night when the butchery was robbed. Everything was taken apart from the meat on the top shelf. The stakes were too high. That night... No, it's a joke I've been trying out for weeks.
I would just kept it.
That night, Elijah died, and what was born was the mortician. He's a vengeful soul who his sole goal is to defeat criminals and make sure the ossuary is safe. And he's single-minded in this. He will go at it like a rabid dog after a bone. He will keep the bad people off the streets to save the local populace of the neighbourhood. The neighbourhood is his to protect.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for all three of you. Just to let people watching know that these are pre-made characters. They actually come with the module. So if there's actually 5 or 6 to choose from, and the players sort of like chose these only by their names, which was interesting, not their actual powers. So
I did choose a number.
Yeah, number 3. Yeah. So interestingly enough, just some clarifications of rules, guys, just so you know. The rule system is slightly different. Remember, you will have power points that you use to actually activate certain abilities, your powers. If it says anything about limited power, this is almost like a disadvantage that is done in character generation to give you a little bit more of an edge. Any opponent that is a normal everyday sort of person, if they have any location of their body that drops below 0, i.e. a serious wound, then they will automatically pass out. Okay, it is assumed that you are pulling shots, pulling blows, unless you specifically say otherwise, which means that all you're doing is you're aiming to sort of like knock common folk out rather than ripping off an arm, etc. If you come across, for example, any supervillains, then they have the same prowess as you, so normal Mythras rules would actually be incorporated. We're going to be playing Theatre of the Mind tonight, so there is no sort of like expensive maps. It's not a tactical game, it's more a game about the narrative, about the story, about the heroism and the heroic battles. Because of this, we'll only really have, in certain situations, 3 range brackets. So you'll either be in combat, near somebody but not in combat, and far away, i.e. out of combat. So you can say to me, I'm going to move into combat range, and in which case you will be in combat range, and then that'll be it. Try to keep an idea of where your characters are in your theatre of the mind, but if you need any clarification on anything, then please do ask. The only thing that I would say it would be helpful for me, because I do not have your skills in front of me, and they're slightly different from Mythras skills. For example, you might have computer skills or something like that. It'd really be helpful if you can put the skill into the description that you're choosing to do. For example, you might say, I'm going to try to unlock. I'm going to try to pick the lock using my lock pick skill, and then I know which one we're rolling with. Apart from that, normal rules apply. There's no difference at all, apart from it's your character sheets that are the correct and not your actual character sheets in here. Okay, does anybody have any questions before we start about the rules?
No, thank you.
Okay.
We just have to
Good.
play it by ear.
Yeah, exactly. And
Improvise.
it's meant to be a narrative, a storyline sort of game, rather than I'll jump behind the second table to the left and duck down behind the left chair leg. Okay, it's not like that. It's sort of like I dive in, I go up and hit him. Okay then, so I'm going to introduce you to something called Gemini City, which you should be able to see now. You should see that on your map, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay then, so I'm going to give you a bit of background for you. So in the 16th century, Spanish explorers discovered a hilly rise above the mouth of a mighty river and dubbed it El Santo Aguilero, or the Holy Eyrie. 2 settlements were founded on each side of the river and, over time, grew into the community now called Gemini City. One of the largest cities on the west coast, Gemini City, or GC, is a hub for cutting-edge tech companies and advanced medical facilities. The hilly rise is known as the Crown, home of Gemini City's financial and cultural districts, as well as many well-known tourist attractions. The city's wealthy and elite can be found on the Crown, mixing with academics from university and software developers from the tech firms. Across the river, also known as the Divide, lies the lower borough, known as the Ossuary, home to the city docks, massive factories and public work offices. It is plagued by street gangs and organised crime families that wage constant turf wars over the crowded neighbourhoods. Gemini City is also home to the gifted individuals with astounding abilities beyond those of normal people. The last 15 years has seen a drastic increase in the number of these extra normal beings, and some are attributed to a rare DNA mutation dubbed the God Strand. Yet there are some heroes who try to emulate their extraordinary gifts of the God Strand with advanced technology, and others use nothing but wits, grit and hard training to wage war against the crime that infects the streets. These heroes, many in costumes and masks, help protect the populace, defending them from the monsters that seek to not only rule Gemini City, but ultimately destroy it. So you should be able to see whereabouts this area is, and you will notice that there's a small bit that is separated off that says the Brigadier Bay. Can you see that on the map?
Yeah, is that where the white box is, or is it below it?
That's exactly where the white box is. And you have been introduced to each other. You have been operating together. Sometimes you go off by yourselves and engage in some superhero activity, you know, defeating local crime bosses, etc., etc. But on this occasion, you are coming together to hopefully subdue a mystery. There's something strange going on, and it starts off with basically a missing person. Now, before I give you this, I would like you to introduce you to something known the cop alert. Okay, so the cop alert is something that you all have, and it is on you in some kind of device that allows you to interact with it. So with both regular and super crime on the rise in Gemini City, the police force developed an application known as Citizens Observe and Protect, or COP, C-O-P. Using a free app on mobile devices, anyone can report criminal activity in their area, and the authorities can issue warnings to steer clear of any dangerous situations in Gemini City. Heroes and vigilantes find the alerts useful to get to the scene of crime first, especially when the police are so thinly spread. The characters, the heroes here, all have apps on their smartphones or integrated into their costumes or equipment in some way. And I can use this to actually communicate to you and send you messages throughout the actual adventure. And it's from your cops that you actually gain not a scene of crime, but a cry for help. There is a refuge, St. Bridget's Refuge, which operates in the Brigadier Bay area. It's almost like a modern day Salvation Army, if that makes sense. And there's lots of people there that actually care for the needy, actually go away and, you know, provide food and warm clothing, etc., etc. And you are summoned to the Bridget's Refuge by a woman named Sally Burrows. And she is somewhat concerned, and she finds to say that one of their volunteers is missing. And that's where we will start the adventure tonight. So you will be assumed that you can either be with each other or separate. If anything, you would like to do anything before you actually go to St. Bridget's Refuge, then now is the time to let me know. If not, let me know when you're ready, and we'll get straight down to the encounter at the refuge.
Leonard will probably have the COP system as part of a software program running within his neural network.
Yeah, cool.
He's quite happy to meet up with people before they goes down there. He's not one of these people that walks around in his superhero outfit, or and to draw attention to himself. He's very much he has a t-shirt on, a pair of corduroy trousers. His t-shirt has the words "People who think they know everything are a great annoyance to those of us who do." Set of brown corduroy trousers, and of course he is Jewish, so he does have a kippah on his hat on his head as well.
Cool. Anyone else?
Yeah, the mortician, he has his smartphone and his Bluetooth earpiece, so he's always in contact with any information that comes through. And once he gets this call through, he will patch a message to Leonard and Lily, just so we can meet up all together at the same place.
Anyone else?
After Lily has finished up her second meal of the morning, or whatever time we're at, just gonna get the message and power on down. Nice sprint, hopefully to get the blood pumping. Get there as fast as I can.
Cool. So you arrive at St. Bridget's refuge, and you've seen this on the local news feeds for some time. Generally, it's doing good for the neighbourhood, but you have noticed that there's been several rallies by the St. Bridget's refuge when they've been trying to shame the local gangs into submission, or requiring them to move on, trying to spread the good word of decent democracy around the Brigadier Bay area. And these have been televised, and there's been, at many of them, there's been bottles chucked or jeering from the local populace, the people who are, shall we say, have less than goodwill in their hearts. And you arrive at the St. Bridget's refuge, and Sally Burrows comes out to meet you. She's almost like a woman who's slightly portly. She's in her late 50s. She has grey hair tightly screwed up to the top of her hair in a bun, and she's wearing what could only be described as some kind of skirt and jacket, tweed skirt and jacket, thick stockings and rather sensible shoes, and she has a pair of those half-framed glasses on the edge of her nose, and she has a clipboard with her at all times, and she sort of like seems to be at the entrance to the refuge, sort of like looking backwards and forwards, expecting your arrival.
Leonard will go up, and is it morning afternoon?
It's about 2:00 in the afternoon.
And he'll say, good afternoon. A clipboard, how quaint.
So it sounds like
be better off with a tablet.
It sounds like Willard Peabody.
No, Willard Peabody was a lot more.
And the only reason I know that is because I was listening to the first ever Call of Cthulhu adventure. There's a few, yesterday actually. So yeah, she sort of like looks. She sort of like tilts her head up to sort of like look at you, and she quickly scans your T-shirt, and almost like makes a huffing noise, and she
I take it you're not familiar with Asimov then.
And she sort of like says, in my world everybody is equal, and I think that's the best way to think of it. I do not believe in people who are, shall we say, slightly more educated than others. Intelligence is just a state of being, I think, and I really do not think it is beneficial to anybody involved to elevate oneself to a higher plane. Are you here about the disappearance?
Yes, we are indeed.
Yes,
I could recommend several tablets which would be of a beneficial use for you, especially when it comes to multiprocessed information.
She says, I do not wish to have your salesperson patter. She says, I am more concerned about our missing volunteer. If you wish to sell me some kind of cyber gadgetry, then please do so at a distance. And she looks...
I do not sell these. I was just merely trying to give you some information about what would be beneficial to you.
She looks
as far as technology goes.
She looks across at you, Lily, or the hair. How's hair dressed?
very comfortable clothing. I presume because she's not on duty in the army anymore. So it's probably just sweatpants and something you could run in. So I presume she's just jogging on up here.
Okay, yeah.
Sprinting.
And she sort of like turns and sort of like looks at you, and she looks up and down, and then she sort of like you hear her mutter to herself, "Effort is very cheap, and it doesn't take much at all, my dear. Maybe a mirror might be in order." And she turns to you, Mortician. What do you look like, Mort?
I'm dressed up in my full outfit. I've got my hood up, my mask on, and I'm kitted. I'm always ready.
Yeah, and she sort of like...
Danger is everywhere.
She looks at you and she sort of like goes... And she says, "Apparently the circus is still in town. Please come in, gentlemen and young lady, girl. Yes, my office is just down the corridor here. Please do come in, and I am very keen for you to meet, or to complete the job I have for you as much as possible." And she turns on her heels and she sort of like totters. It's not a stride because her tweed skirt is very sort of like pencil-like, and sort of like little. She's got quite chubby thighs and then tiny ankles, and then these shoes, very sensible shoes, court shoes, and she sort of like moves, totters down the corridor. The inside of the refuge seems to be almost like a church hall. There's a rather large area that you can see has rows of tables with benches on either side, and it's obvious that this is some kind of feeding area. And you can see at the back there's almost like an old style canteen, you know, with the corrugated thing metal down over the serving hatch. And it's obvious that they probably invite the homeless or the less unfortunate into here for free food. You can also see a set of stairs going up at the far end of the dining hall. And as she sort of like walks through the hall, she sort of like turns to you, and she seems to be with her pencil that she has behind her ear that she takes out. She almost like thinks that it's time to give you a guided tour of the area, and she sort of like talks to you, looking straight forward and then just casually pointing to things with her pencil as she goes through. And she says, "You will find the bathrooms over there," and you pass two doors, male and female. And she says, "This of course is the the dining hall, where we cater for the less unfortunate food requirements. The canteen is there behind the corrugated iron, and we find it's much better to keep it shut and before the feeding, supper begins." She says, she points over to the staircase, and over there you will find the stairs up to the dormitory. Yes.
Forgive me for asking, but how you did mention a missing person. How long have they been missing?
Yeah, and she just keeps walking. And sort of like, she seems to be oblivious to any of you. Sort of, you could actually not be following her at all. She just seems to assume that you're following, and she's just sort of like, you ask her this question, she just seems to carry on talking. And yes, up the stairs is where they sleep, in a room very similar to the size. And just down here is my office, and there's a cleaner cleaning the floor. Seems to be rather a young girl. It's probably early 20s, mid 20s, with a ponytail and sort of like tied back hair, and she sort of like seems to have some kind of vaping contraption in, and she's sort of like mopping the floor, and she sort of like Sally Burroughs actually, "Margaret, you've missed a spot, please do that correctly." And then she goes.
Then going to turn his attention to what technology items he can see round about.
Yeah, make a
cameras or anything like that.
Yeah, make a perception roll for me. Yeah, it seems to be quite devoid of any sort of technical applications or apps or devices at all. There seems to be the normal fluorescent light. You do notice that there's some kind of old-fashioned air conditioning unit, and you do notice that there's several wires poking out the wall at various locations that have been cut, as if there might have been a camera somewhere, but it's just been cut off. And yeah, even with your fantastic, formidable roll there, you can see that there's literally, you can see the brackets, that haven't been painted over, as if there was a camera attached to the wall that's been removed. And Sally brings you into what can only be described as an old-fashioned study. There's a rather heavy table, and some chairs have been put out, very sort of like wooden and stereotypical common chairs. And she goes behind her desk and sits in a rather upright leather chair with wings on either side, if that makes sense. And that sort of like allows her to sort of like almost like relax in the middle of it. And she sort of like shows she walks in and sort of like gestures to the chairs for you to be seated down, and then she shouts, "Margaret, door!" And the woman who was outside comes all across and opens the door, and then she starts to talk, and she turns to you, and she turns to you, Leonard, first of all, and says, "Yeah, she didn't come back last night. It's quite a worrying situation."
She name?
Yes. How?
Bear with me, and he'll sort of like hold up his hand, and as he holds up his hands, it's almost like it's being printed. Do you know those printers that you can get that actually do shapes?
Mm.
As he holds out his hand, it's sort of like a data pad appears. It's almost like it's been printed, and then as does a sort of like a stylus so that he can write.
Mm.
And he'll say, "Name."
Yeah, she sort of like looks at you, and she sort of like, just roll your insight roll for me. Yeah, you get this distinct feeling that she feels that she's under interrogation, rather than three heroes out to support her. And she sort of like pauses, and you see her take a rather deep breath before she sort of like continues.
Leonard recognizes this, so he'll say, no way are you under investigation. As you will appreciate, as much information as you can provide us would help immensely in
and she sort of like talks to she turns her head to you, and she sort of like drops her head and sort of like peers over her glasses at you, and says, "Manners, young man, you will find out very shortly. In your career, manners definitely maketh the man." Her name was Harriet Waldon. She's been a volunteer at this refuge for some time. She's well known in the Brigadier Bay area. She, I would say, has probably gained the respect of not only those of less fortunate persuasion to our own, but also the people who are trying to make a difference, like your good self. You have probably heard about her.
Can I make a locale roll to see
Yes,
what I have?
by all means.
I'll second that as well.
Okay. Yes, you both recognise the name straight away. She's very vocal in the area, and you've seen her on several news feeds, being very outspoken. Whenever there's a camera crew down here, she's the one that's been interviewed, and you also know that she was very passionate about Brigadier Bay, and how to sort of like how it needs to be changed, etc. And Mort, you also remember from your crit roll there that you actually saw her being filmed at a rally just last night. And you also, just from your crit roll, remember that she's very, very outspoken about a certain group of individuals that frequent the Brigadier Bay area, called the 52nd Hundred. So that's 52ND 100. It's like a gang. And Sally continues. Yeah, she did not return last night from the rally. She normally goes straight back home and then gets in touch with me. I haven't heard from her at all, and her cell phone is somewhat dead. I'm getting no signal or out of service. It is it's very unlike Harriet to do anything like this. She's mostly very, shall we say, popular in the area and very committed to her job and actually protecting the unfortunate souls within this area.
Does she live here, or does she have her own apartment?
Yeah, when you talk, she sort of like goes, oh, it speaks. No, she has her own apartment. I have not been out there due to the rather sinister nature of the streets around here. I am sure it is somewhere that you are more likely to frequent more than I.
Yes. Is there any possibility you could give us her address, if that's at all possible, Miss?
Oh yes,
Mrs. Burrows.
Yes. She sort of like smiles at you, especially when you use her name, Mrs. Burrows, and she turns to you and she says, "Oh no, sorry, Miss. Yes, not really? Mrs." And she sort of like leans back and she pulls out a drawer from the desk and takes out a piece of paper and a pen. And as she takes it out, she sort of like looks at you, Leonard, and almost like just glances at you, then says, "I will write it for you." And she scribbles down an address to an apartment and sort of like hands it.
Would it also be possible to write down her mobile number? Although the phone might be disconnected at the time, it might be possible to triangulate the signal and therefore get a location on the whereabouts of the item.
Yeah, and she sort of like, she was reaching the paper out to you, Morton, then she sort of like brings it back, and she seems to have like a one of those rotary card things.
Rolodex.
That she flicks through. And then she sort of like takes out a card.
Leonard's just there, just shaking his head.
Peers through the bottom of her glasses, and then she writes down a number. You notice that she's actually using what appears to be a fountain pen, but not the common sort with cartridges. Definitely one that you sort of like suck up the ink in as you write with it, rather than just sort of like, and she sort of like writes a number down. She takes one of those rocking things and blots it off for you, folds it in half, and sort of like ventures it out towards you, Mort. It's almost like as if she's handing sort of like, you know, when somebody tries to give a dog a bone and they're sort of like handing it out, and at the last minute they're going to go like that. It's a bit like that. And it's sort of like,
I'll reach out. I'll say what I was saying. Your help is much appreciated, Miss Burrows.
Thank you, Mr. Mort. Yes. Is there any? Can I just say at this point, I have warned Harriet on many occasions that something might turn out rather bad. She's very vocal, and well, there's a certain group of people who are less than savoury round here.
I was going to ask, I remember seeing her last night at the rally, and she was being very vocal about, is the gang around here the 5200s? But whereabouts do they?
Well, you might have been the last person to see her.
Yes, I think they're 52nd hundred.
Yes.
I think there may be a gang. I'm not too sure of the common, and the most up to date, and she turns to you, Leonard, once more. Terminology for this sort of thing is, but when I was younger, not that many years ago, and she says as she pats her hair, then yes, they are a rather rowdy bunch of individuals, often up to absolutely no good at all. Yeah, she did say something about going to a rally last night.
Do we know where the 52nd hundreds live or associate or?
I'm sorry, Mr. Mort. It is not a question that I would even lower myself to ask them, let alone write down. I suppose they would use some kind of modern terminology like everywhere or around here, perhaps. It is not
with
clear.
access to a primitive computer system, I could probably cross-reference their whereabouts using police reports on their activities.
And therefore, your answer seems to be apparent from your young associate here, Mr. Mort.
I was hoping perhaps maybe, Miss Burrows, that you might have heard something through your little friends here, your charges. But no, that's fine if you haven't.
Well, they normally come in later on for supper and a nice place to sleep. However, I can always get in touch with you if I hear anything.
Wonderful. I will write down my cell number here for you, and I'll give him my cell number.
Oh, thank you. Yes, very decorative handwriting you have, Mr. Mort. Very, very interesting. Yes.
I'm sorry, Miss Burrows. My hands are made for other things than scriptive writing.
Yes, I can see. I presume you wear gloves or something, do you?
I do, yep.
Yeah. She sort of like looks down and so says, yes, thank you. I will get in touch with you, Mr. Mort, if anybody mentions it. And she turns to you, Lily, and says, have you ever considered volunteering or doing any charity work, young lady?
Lily looks up from her phone. I was hoping she was able to perhaps leverage her streetwise skill during this conversation, be looking up or checking with any contacts she might know. But she looks up from her phone and says, not for me.
No. I suppose the calling only comes to some of us who can, answer the need of others. Very few people share that commitment to people less fortunate than themselves. Many just remain in their own, and she glances down at your phone, virtual world.
Ma'am, I already served this country. I've been in the army.
Yes, I find that hard to believe, young lady, but yes. Yes. You said that you wanted to use streetwise skill. What is it that you would like to find out?
I was hoping to research the 5200s. The gang, see if there's anybody who I might know who might be willing to share information about like what happened down at that rally, or anything of that sort. If that works for you.
Go ahead. Roll your streetwise skill.
Standard.
Yeah. Oh, I like your little picture.
The picture you sent to me.
Yeah, I like it that you put it on there because I didn't put. Did I put that on?
No, I snipped it and put it on.
You techno person.
There's always somebody.
Well, I noticed Mortician has a.
No, I've got Rorschach as mine.
Who is it?
Roshank, sorry, from Watchmen. Because it's a very
similar, that's where I've seen him from. Yes, I remember now. I hated that film. Really did. Okay then. So you start to sort of like use your streetwise skill. That'll probably involve you sort of like actually doing some leg work here without unless you've got a computer skill that you would like to augment with it.
No, I guess I was hoping to see if there were any people maybe that I could set up for a talk after we've finished. Since and
you probably have a range of contacts that you know around the Brigadier Bay area. So you can probably be arranging to meet them at certain locations. I'm just going to move you again.
I did actually have a quick question. I don't know if you already answered it. What is the primary crimes of this gang? Is it like drug trafficking, or is it just general gang mischief?
It's more sort of like well, I tell you what, we'll use that streetwise roll there for that. Can you see the St. Bridget's Refuge there on the map? I suppose what I should do, can you see that now?
Yes.
I should actually enable that. So
oh, everything's gone black.
So you can't see it now.
It's nighttime. Once again,
good job, I've got a photographic memory.
And then do that. There you go. You might have to move around now, but you should be able to see St. Bridget's. Excellent. So, so the 52nd 100 is really very much like a street gang. They're not sort of like mobile. They're not like biker gangs or anything like that. They tend to be very much sort of like annoyance rather than anything else. There is some information that they've actually done some robberies, and shall we say that they run like protection rackets. You know, they often go around sort of like taking money for people. They're not a major crime syndicate, but they are one of the biggest sort of like crime gangs in this area, in Brigadier Bay area. They actually have a leader who's called Kavar. I'll put it in the chat. He's been around for some time, and you know from your streetwise role that he worked up the ranks, and he actually has a lot of respect from the gang members, because he's not somebody who had money and then moved into the gang. He's actually come from the streets and worked his way up into this sort of like gang area. So is there anything else you would like to ask Ms. Burrows?
Yes, Leonard will go. Would Harriet have a locker or anything where she might have stored her personal effects when she would have been volunteering?
So I just messed an R out of Carver's name. She certainly says, no, I do not. allow volunteers any area within the site to keep personal belongings. Only this office where I keep mine, and taxation, documentation, and things like this. And this room is locked.
Right. Okay. Well. Thank you very much for your for your help.
Yeah. Okay then. So you
just out of interest, if Harriet was purely a volunteer, is there any reason why? Could she not just be having a week off on a holiday?
And she sort of like looks at you and says, "Harriet doesn't take weeks off. She is dedicated."
I can quite understand that. It is a long time since I personally had a holiday myself.
And she sort of like, you notice that Maggie's continues to mop the floor. She seems to have made very little.
Same room?
She's in the main hall, yeah, and she seems to have made very little progress since you went in. And Miss Burrows sort of like stands at the doorway. She shows you out and says, "Maggie, you still missed a spot, my dear." And she points to the same spot that she's pointed at before.
Is Lily about the same age as Maggie? Or are you older, Lily?
I will let Lily.
I'm going to send Lily a message and say, maybe the text will say, maybe you can have a chat with Maggie and see if she knows anything, or see if she has heard anything.
You hear the door of the office shut behind you, and it's quite a sturdy bang. It looks like it's quite a rather headmistress sort of like type door.
I would presume Lily's probably in her mid to late 20s since she spent time in the army.
Yeah. So Maggie looks like early 20s, mid 20s. So you're probably roughly of the same ilk or age bracket. The only thing that you probably do recognise, Lily, is that Maggie doesn't carry herself that well. She doesn't look as toned as you do. She probably...
Is she flumpish?
No, she's sort of like... She looks... Say again, sorry.
Dejected.
Yeah,
sort of like...
she's obviously got this job, and she doesn't obviously love this job, but she's probably doing it for community service or something like that. It looks like she's been told to do it, and let's just say her heart and soul is not in it. Well, Lily, your work ethic is very much, if somebody tells you to do something from your army days, it's not up to you to ask why or the wherefore. You just go ahead and do it. So if you would like to converse with Maggie, then that would be a suitable scenario.
Yes, I would entirely like to. If the group wants to follow, they can, but I'm just gonna veer off and go towards her.
Yeah. So
I'm gonna keep on going because it's best if they're alone. Yep.
Yeah. So that brings me. We'll come back to Maggie, and
then it just sort of like stands there and looks confused and doesn't know whether or not to follow Lily or to follow to follow Mort. So he'll just stand there.
If I notice Leonard's just stood there, I will go, "Leonard, if you'd like to accompany me, that'd be wonderful."
Cool. What's your plan of action?
Well, I was just going to go down the stairs and just wait until Lily came back.
Okay.
Literally, I'm not going to leave the building. I'm just going to stay in the building and just wait. It's just an avenue of investigation.
Yeah, so you weren't planning on going off anywhere and...
taking on the whole world by myself? No.
Or going to apartment or anything like that?
No.
Okay, then. So you're just going to go outside and stand outside. And Leonard, you're just sort of like standing in the in the hall. So we'll come back to you, Lily, and we can role play out your bit, and then we can decide what's going to happen then.
He won't be staring at them directly. He'll sort of like be looking around.
No, that's fine. So yes, Lily, what would you like to do?
I'll approach her and ask her a question. Just say, Maggie?
Yeah, she sort of like is mopping the floor, and you notice as you get closer to her that there's that smell of wet mop, and obviously some water that is not sort of like prestige and sort of like disinfected. There's also seems to be like it's picking up less dirt than it's putting down, and she's sort of like quite half-heartedly just sort of like going backwards and forwards with it. You also notice that she's actually mopping an area that she's about to stand on, if that makes sense. So she's mopping and then moving everything forward and then mopping again and moving everything forward and mopping, rather than starting at the far end and mopping. So and she just sort of like looks up to you, and she sort of like looks up and sort of like casts her eye sort of like up and down you, and she just sort of like says, "I'm busy."
I can see you're busy. I'm Lily. Just wanted to know if you had a couple answers for me, real quick.
She says to you, "Hi, Lily." She says, "I'm busy." And she puts, as she says that, she sticks the mop into the water, and she just like looks at you. She just sort of like plunges it up and down, and then presses one of the handles on it that sort of like wrings it out, and she just sort of like stares at you, and she doesn't let it completely wring out, and she goes a flop on the mat, and a bit of water just goes everywhere.
I'd like to attempt to use my influence, maybe with my passion for protecting civilians, to be like, listen, Maggie, I'm just here to help. I want to find.
You can use your
missing
influence.
coworkers.
Yeah, you can. You're not protecting her in any sense. I've got no dice rolling things. Oh, it's because I want to have put the macros in, won't I?
Oh, would that passion be specifically like standing in the way of a fireball coming at people?
Yeah, exactly.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. I thought it was like Oath to Amriel, where I'm just always...
No, unfortunately not. So so if you would like to roll your influence skill.
Pow.
Yeah, and she you sort of like what? Sorry, what did you say to her? I missed that bit.
I'm just trying to figure out some information, see if I can help her missing coworker.
Yeah. So are you sort of like, I need a little bit more information before I can reply to you. What was the question you were asking?
I guess I was mostly just asking for her to give me a chance to speak, and so if she does, my questions would be: I want to know if she knew any of Harriet's friends, or if Harriet had a boyfriend, perhaps, or any known contacts that might have hated her.
Okay.
Like somebody's boyfriend here at the refuge might have been a gang member and hated her or something.
Yeah, and she's sort of like, you win the roll. We both actually succeeded, but you've got the highest roll. And she's just sort of like flops the mop down, as if she's a bit bored, and sort of like turns to you, and she sort of like takes a drag of her vaping box or whatever it's called, and sort of like turns to one side and puffs it out, and she says, "Harriet was a busybody. She should have kept her nose on her face and her eyes to the ground, if you ask me."
That makes sense. I feel you there. Yeah, you shouldn't stick your nose in things that you can't deal with.
And and she sort of like grins with you and says, "Take your own advice, Missy."
I can bite a whole lot off. Don't worry. I'm just trying to see if we can find out what happened. Maybe
Those sorts have no friends at all. They're dedicated to their cause. You know what I mean. Just spends their time saying, oh, I can do good. I can change the world. I can make an impact.
It sounds like you didn't much care for her.
Nobody did. Apart from Miss Burrows. Sorry, Ms. Burrows. And she only cared for her because she does a whole lot of work for her. Yes, Miss Burrows. No, Miss Burrows. Dirty part of the floor. And she goes and spits on it, Miss Burrows.
I felt the same. She's just sitting there droning on and on. All I want to do is go figure out what's going down. You know, got a need for solve the mystery. But it sounds like if so many people hated her. And
if Harriet's done what's good for her, she would have gone back to Daddy. And instead of living herself down here with us lot, she would be probably back in her rich house with her rich daddy and her rich cars and her rich floors and her rich good-to-do-nothing people, and leave us here to live our lives by ourselves. We don't need people like her.
Yeah, it sounds like she was a bit of a fish out of water here. That's crazy. That's crazy.
And she sort of like, look, she says, she looks at the piece of floor that you're stood on, and she looks up and she says, I need to clean there.
I bet. I'll quickly jump off.
Yeah, and she doesn't. She maintains her eye contact with you, and this sort of like pushes the mop backwards and forwards, and there's that smell of dirty water. And she sort of like returns to her work. You take it that her conversation with you has come to somewhat of an abrupt end.
I'll just think to myself, she missed a spot, and scamper on out to catch up with the group.
Yeah, and Leonard sort of like still...
Leonard sort of like looks around and sees that Lily is going as well, and just sort of like tondles off after her.
Be cool, Leonard. Be cool.
Yeah, and the mortician is waiting outside, and you meet up and join up again. Yeah, what would you like to do?
Did you find out anything interesting?
Yeah, I guess this girl is a rich girl down here. Rich daddy is apparently what she has. What was her last name? Walden?
Walden.
Walden?
Yes.
I wonder if... I didn't really get any good context for whether or not there were any specifics that might want to get her. It seemed like most everybody disliked her according to this sad sack in there.
I wonder if the cleaner knew her family was rich, maybe everybody else knew her family were rich.
Sounds like it. Sounds like they didn't want her messing around in their affairs down here. Sound like she had good heart though.
But do you think maybe she's been kidnapped for ransom? If so, then would it not be beneficial to us to contact the family?
It could be. I was kind of wondering that it might be something that could generate some useful leads. I'm not getting too much on my phone right now. Haven't heard back from anyone.
Well, I did notice that your phone is several models behind the current range. I could probably just via a small amount of code increase the speed of it by approximately 12.5%.
12.5%? Are you serious? Always coming out with all these crazy things. I'm always saying these phones are too slow. Can't type to the speed I want to type. I'll just pass off my phone to him.
Yeah, make a computer.
Okay, my computers is a savant roll, so it's all one grade easier than it would.
Yeah, that is correct. Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, you easily do what you're going to do with it, and yeah, your phone
he
now
types in a small amount of code, which increases the processing power by. He actually gets it to 12.87% in the.
Cool.
Oh, it's like syrup on pancakes.
Yes, I did estimate it at 12.5%, but I have managed to do 12.87%.
Well, thank you. It's so much quicker. It's not as quick as I need it to be, but I don't think.
I mean, if you wanted any quicker than that, then I would advise that you upgrade to the P20 model.
Yeah.
The CPU is superior in all case.
That's what I hear, but if I'm not mistaken, we got a girl that's been kidnapped, and time is ticking. It's always ticking, even while Miss Burrows is chattering away.
Yeah, so you've been here about an hour now since your meeting at 2:00. So it's now getting on to about 3:00, 1 hour later, and you're stood outside the St. Bridget's refuge.
You think we could perhaps find information about the family on the way to her apartment? Could Leonard do that, or you, Lily?
I could try looking up anything on my phone, but maybe we could stop and grab some food while we're on the way to the apartment. It's been working up an appetite in here listening to Miss Burrows yak away.
Yeah, I could do with the dog.
Okay then, so the idea is to grab some food and then go over to Harriet's apartment. Yeah, so you sort of like stop off at a local fast food store. You settle down and have yourself something to eat like true superheroes, and you sort of like have a good chat and enjoy your food. So including the trip to Harriet's apartment. It's taken about it's 3:00. So say for example you've gone somewhere, you've had something to eat, and then you've head off to the apartment. So we'll say it's about 5:30ish. So time and the white collars are sort of like the blue collar workers are sort of like heading back now. They clocked up at 5, so the streets are quite busy with people going home, and it's approximately Harriet should have reported in at work, if you assume she would have reported in at the normal time for work, i.e. 9:00, although you didn't acquire that information. You presume it was like 9:00, so now it's a bit like Missing Without Trace on the TV, if you ever see that program. So she's now, if we say that it's 5:30, she's now been missing for roughly about 8.5 hours, and it's sort of like, so there would be a cut scene in a comic book sort of like storyline, and it would come up missing 8.5 hours, and then zoom out the way as you arrive to Harriet's apartment. She seems to live in one of those types of buildings that are like a hotel, but has obviously been turned aside over to residential properties. So it's got staircases at both ends, the classic lift which is out of order, and each of the 5 floors has a central corridor with rooms going off outside either side of it, and as well as steps going up either side of the building. Inside there's an external fire escape that goes either side, both of which go down into like an alleyway between 2 buildings. And Mortician, from the piece of paper that you've got from Miss Burrows, that Harriet's apartment is on the 3rd floor, and it's actually room or apartment number 553A. And just
apartment 3, 5th floor.
yeah, and so to apartment 5, 3rd floor. Yeah.
Oh, sorry,
yeah.
sorry.
And so you go up, and yeah, you can see that it's one of those strange places that people are almost like using the corridor as a street. So as you walk down, you sort of like notice some people just sort of like at their doorways, having a chat. It doesn't seem to be the most upper class sort of like area. It seems a rather sort of like lower class, for want of a better word. And you do notice as you walk down that several of the doors don't just have one lock on them. They have several locks as you walk down. And yeah, you come to stand, all three of you, outside her apartment.
Leonard wants to have a close look at the door when he gets there, and to see whether or not it's been tried to be forced or anything like that. Yeah. Whether or not there's a crowbar mark on it or a footprint where somebody might have tried to kick it next to the locks.
Yeah, make a perception roll for me. Yeah, there seems to be no outside mark on it or anything. The door is shut and or closed. It doesn't look like the door jamb seems to be intact, and it seems to be, absolutely fine. There's no footprint on it that's been kicked or anything. And you sort of like look around it, and you notice that a rather portly guy in a white string vest comes out from another door down the thing. He seems to be smoking what appears to be a big fat cigar, although he doesn't seem to be smoking it. It just seems to be in his mouth. He looks like late 50s. He's extremely out of shape. He's got his braces off his trousers sort of like dangling down either side of his trousers, and he seems to almost like try to make a pretense that he's come out to do something, but it's obvious that he's just being somewhat of a nosy
twitcher.
Yep. Yeah, and he sort of like sees you outside Harriet's apartment, and he sort of says, "Oh, she's not in."
Really, sir? When was the last time she was in?
He goes, I don't know. I don't think she came back last night, sir.
I'll slowly walk towards him while saying, "Has anybody been at her door, come into her door since last night?"
Are you trying to threaten him?
No.
No.
It's more of an, how can I say it? A menacing approach, but in a non-threatening way. Do you know what I mean?
So you want to be menacing without...
Not threatening. Yeah. Asserting my authority.
Okay, then he sort of like says, no, I don't think anybody's been there. The only reason I asked that was to assign a skill roll to it.
All right. You seem to be a man who has his ear to the wall.
Yeah, how close are you actually getting to him?
With a friendly handshake distance.
Yeah, and he sort of like steps slowly back into his doorway, and sort of like says, I haven't seen anyone."
Are you aware she's been reported missing?
Missing? Oh dear, that's awful.
You see, there's been nobody. I'll be a bit more forceful now. I'll use a bit of intimidation, I think, might come into this.
Okay, so do you have an intimidation skill?
I do have an intimidation. Oh.
So you will match...
sorry, just bear with me. I thought I had, but I don't. I've got streetwise, track bluffing, survival.
So it will go underneath your influence roll then?
Right.
So you will match against his willpower roll.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you sort of like come closer to him, and he says, "Look, I haven't seen anything, nothing at all." And he sort of like steps into his room and sort of like shuts the door. And
Can I get my foot just there, just in case of him closing it, just to sort of like stop it? I say, just as he's closing it, I want to say, can I give you my number just in case you hear anything?
Yeah, so make an unarmed combat skill check to get your foot in the door in time.
Can Leonard try to push the door of Harriet's apartment to see whether or not it opens?
So you sort of like get your foot into the door, and he tries to shut the door, and you sort of what do you say to him? Sorry.
I say, can I give you my number? In case you hear anything, you can ring me straight away.
Yeah, and what are you giving him a card or something?
Yeah, I will give him a card.
Yeah,
So,
he sort of like, he doesn't say anything. He just sort of like takes it off you and looks down at your foot and waits.
If you hear anything, call me and I'll take my foot out the door.
Yeah, and he then slams the door, and you hear the definite sort of like Leonard, you push the door. It's not open. It's definitely locked.
Okay, so anybody who's watching Leonard now, he's just, again, very much like one of these 3D printers. From his head, he just starts to collapse down as if he's just crumbling down, and he's just gone.
Yeah. Does he have to use any power to do that?
He's going into vapor form.
Yeah.
I think I have to use. I think I have to always use a PowerPoint whenever I go in.
That's what I was
into anything.
Let me just. So it's vaporous form, isn't it?
Yes.
That's your ability that you're doing. As an action, turn into a cloud of vapor. Fine particles. This is incapable of interacting with the physical world, but immune to physical attacks. You actually gain a flying speed equal to 1/3 your power in meters, and you can pass through openings of any size.
As he just sort of like disappears. If Lily's watching, it's just almost like from his head down. It's like somebody's pulled a string from his head.
Yeah.
You know, when you have a jumper and you start pulling it and the things go.
Like a knitted jumper, yeah.
Yeah, he just goes down. So my plan is to then use my vaporous form to go underneath the door.
Yeah.
And then once underneath the door, he will manifest back into his into his nano body.
Yeah, and you notice that the inside of the door does have several bolts on it, say 3, but these are not across, and the locks are in place. So it's quite obvious that Harriet left. But obviously she wasn't inside, because otherwise the bolts would have been across. Yeah.
My hope is that once he's come back into his form, that there'll be like a something that like a Yale lock, even though there's nothing.
Yeah. Oh yeah. You can open the door from the inside. That's not a problem.
Yeah. So he'll open the door.
Yeah.
And he'll be stood there on the other side.
Cool.
May I come in, Lenny?
The thing that you notice about him, that his t-shirt's actually changed colour, and as has the saying that's on it as well. It now says the saddest aspect of life right now is that science gathers knowledge faster than society gathers wisdom, and it is a after it.
Do you know what the definition of artificial intelligence actually is?
No.
This is theoretical. Artificial intelligence is actually now defined as software which will update itself.
That's quite Skynetish.
Yeah, that's what I thought. It's actually written about it in technology and learning and things like that. That artificial intelligence, and that's why when people say it'll never do anything because we created it. Yes, we did create it, but we gave it the power to
It's self-correct and update.
which is quite.
There's nothing wrong with that. Don't worry about it. It's fine.
Yeah.
As long as I get my cup of coffee.
Yeah.
So Leonard will go, when Lily says that, he'll go, yes, do come in.
Yeah.
I'll make my way in there.
I'll turn on the light.
Yeah, the lights come on. It's no problem. It's just a simple. The apartment has like an open living dining area with the kitchen, so there's just sort of like imagine it as an oblong shape. Has a little alleyway, that little corridor that goes into the room. On the left hand side you can see that there's the bathroom and a small cloak room area. On the right, it obviously goes into what appears to be her bedroom. All the doors are open, and in the main room there seems to be a sitting room, then like a breakfast bar, and then a kitchen area. It's not what you would call a spacious apartment at all, but it's adequate. If anything,
Leonard would look around for any type of computer or tablet or anything that might be used by Harriet.
Okay, cool. Where was I? Oh yes, I know where. I was watching Diagnosed Murder. It's just, roll your perception roll for me. Is there anything that Mortician and
Mort, seeing them go into the room, I will move to the inside of the door, and seeing that Leonard's got everything in hand, I'll just cover the door for the time being.
Okay, cool. And what about Lily, aka the Hare?
I want to say good distraction, Morty, to Mortician. As I make my way, I'm just kind of doing a perimeter check, making sure there's not like anything, broken windows or anything.
Okay then. Just make a perception roll for me.
Absolutely.
Leonard, sorry, you can see various items of gadgetry in the place, but there seems to be no sort of like computer or tablet or anything like that. There seems to be a television that doesn't look top of the range at all. There's various gadgetries in the kitchen, like a mixer, a coffee percolator, things like that. The whole apartment, as you could probably imagine, is very precise and very neatly laid out. The windows are somewhat dirty from the outside, but Lily, you notice that they're almost like spotless from the inside. There's no balconies or anything. She's just sort of like facing out onto the front of the main road. But you also notice that there's locks on the windows from the inside. There seems to be no sort of like broken glass or anything like that, and no sign of forced entry. Mort, you can see down just from your position in the near the door, either as you peep out or just you can see that those twitchers.
Yes.
They seem to be finding a little bit more to do out in the corridor, and every time you sort of like catch their eyes, they sort of like they're obviously that they're watching what's going on, and then they just sort of like quickly turn and hold up a hand or something like that.
So there's no there's nothing for how she might have like had a journal or anything like that on any electronic device. What about in the bedroom? Is there anything in the bedside cabinet? Anything?
Well, there's things in the bedside cabinet of sort of like normal everyday living things. You would assume that if she probably did have a tablet of some description or a phone, but it seems quite logical to say that she wouldn't leave it here. If she was going out, she would take it with her. You know, there seems to be, I mean, now, you know, you don't actually, she might have a laptop or a tablet, but there's no sort of like gaming machine or anything like that. And you sort of like reason that, you know, she did have anything like a tablet or a phone, then she'd probably have it with her rather than leaving it out in the apartment.
Is there anything in the trash cans? Crumpled up paper or...
It looks as if there's not a lot in anything, and there seems to be just sort of like junk mails or like flyers and things like that. You do notice that everything's been ripped into precisely 8 pieces. You know, it seems very methodical, and you notice as you look in cupboards and everything like that, everything is very precise. And in the right place, and you're quite impressed, Lily, because this apartment is very clean. You know, it's almost like to your army standards. It's very clean and very sort of like precise. You know, you have a quick look in the bedroom and you notice that the sheet has proper envelope corners. And everything seems to be very precise and in the right correct places.
Is there any indication anywhere in the apartment that somebody else might have been living there with Harriet?
It looks like there's only one person. I mean, even down to the... I mean, there's not just one plate and one cup and one knife and fork. But there's nothing like 2 glasses on the thing with...
Or different size clothing in the...
No, not at all. And the clothing seems to be very sort of like basic, very matter of fact. There's nothing expensive in here or anything like that.
Is there anything that deviates from the orderly norm? Anything that looks kind of out of place?
No.
Or is it all pretty much 100%?
If anything, it all looks very much in place.
So it's like she got up for work, went out, and never came back.
Yeah, very much so.
I don't know if there's anything more that we can get here, boys.
Just Lily, just have a look out the window, see if anybody's looking up at us or...
All right, so appreciate a view. I'm going to sprint on over to any window and look out, see if I can see anything.
I don't think you'll see much out of those windows. They seem to be very dirty.
Yes, they are very dirty, and you can see normal, everyday people sort of like going home from work. It seems, I mean, the whole Bay Area is very sort of like, it's not the best place to live, you know, but, you know, people are sort of like trying to make the best of where they are. You do notice that your COP devices sort of like send feed into you at any one point, and you notice, Lily, that your phone, because you was sort of like using it sort of like used its own intelligence plus the gadget, the digital stuff that Leonard did. It seems to have picked up what appears to be some new news about Harriet, and you can see that it's actually broadcasting on a news feed. That seems to be coming on. There's a rather prestige woman with big hair lacquered into place and a sort of like a low cut V top sat at a news desk as you flip over your phone and you see it. And there's that typical sort of like business type suit guy next to who sort of like nodding to the woman, and you sort of like flick up and you sort of like see it happening just as the guy says, and I think Marjorie has some news on us for us, and she says, yes, Harold, I do. Yes, it would appear that the missing girl, and she sort of like looks down at a note. Harriet, well done. It appeared that she was abducted. And Howell goes, really, Marjorie? Really? How awful. How very awful. Yes, Leonard, we have just received or managed to acquire footage from local traffic and ATM cameras in the area, and it appears to be showing the young lady Harriet, who was a very keen and dedicated volunteer at the wonderful St. Bridget's Refuge, being dragged off by two what can only be described as delinquents. And there's this sort of like picture that has obviously been fitted together from various camera shots, whether or not it was from traffic cams or ATM machines or something like that. And you can sort of like, it's not a proper moving picture. It's sort of like one picture. It's almost like stop animation that sort of like shows her sort of like moving down, and then she's sort of like by herself, and then these two thugs come out of a side alleyway and sort of like grab her and sort of like pull her in, and she's obviously struggling a little bit. They seem to be wearing what appears to be bandanas and almost like bomber jackets. Lily, can you make a streetwise roll for me, please?
Yes, I can. Pow.
Yeah, you easily recognise these as members of the 52nd 100 gang. You even catch, just as it goes, because you're quite used to the world going a lot quicker, slower from you, so you sort of like notice things a little bit better, and you notice that they've actually got the logo on the back. They're sort of like gang insignia on the back, and they sort of like grab her into the street. You do notice that she seems to drop her bag. It seems to be like a over-the-shoulder handbag, if that makes sense. She drops it and it comes off her arm and lands on the floor. But you notice that the two gang members don't sort of like go back and pick it up. They just sort of like drag her into an alleyway, sort of like that stop animation sort of like type. And then the last photograph just has the bag on the floor, and so there's news story.
This is coming through the cop system, isn't it?
Yeah, well, no, it's coming through the news media system. Right. It was because Lily had been asked the questions, and then you boosted the phone, so it's almost decided then to sort of like retrieve articles by itself. And it's sort of like, and then it switches back to Marjorie, who sort of like suddenly realizes that the camera's watching her, goes, oh, quite dreadful. And Harold sort of like says, it looks like they left the bag there. And Marjorie said, yes, local police have not been able to retrieve the bag, although they are currently investigating the scene of the abduction. More about this later. Harold. And Harold says, and now the weather in the Brigadier Bay. And Lily, you sort of like think, oh, that's the news story finished.
I presume that Lily was, once she realized she had this, she's going to share with her phone so everybody can see or hear or come over if they're interested. And then during that, she would mumble the 52nd 100 boys.
Oh, could I borrow your phone?
Yeah, I'll toss the phone to him.
Yeah.
Say, we better get a move on here if we want to find that bag. That looks like something we might need if we're going to make any progress here.
Give me a few minutes. I will. I'll find the location of it.
Good move, Lenny. Good move.
I'll take the general area and cross-reference it against a map of the city, and taking into account any street names that I can find, and pinpoint the exact location. I will also see whether or not I can find the actual time. Most of these cameras will have some sort of timestamp on them, and then that will allow us to ascertain whether or not it was before or after she was seen.
Is there any way, Leonard, you can go into these cameras and maybe find or tell these cameras to look out for and tell you where a 52nd 100 gang member might be? They seem to be quite proud of wearing their colours on the street.
Yeah, unfortunately, that wouldn't be possible from a phone. I could probably do it if I had some type of mainframe which I could ascertain, or if we could get closer to the actual system that was storing this information, then I could access it directly by integrating my system into that. But no, not.
It's all gibberish to me, my friend. You know what you're doing and what you can do.
Even Samsungs have their limitations.
Yeah, and you just roll a computer skill for me, please. Yeah,
That's again one grade easier than.
Yeah, you sort of like cross reference everything, and the corridor, the alleyway that she was sort of like pulled into is roughly halfway between where where St. Bridget's Refuge is and the where her apartment is. It looks like she went on a slightly roundabout route. It's not a direct route, but you're sort of like pondering that for a moment, and then suddenly you remember that it's, you know, she might have gone to a rally or something like that beforehand. And it's as you are doing that, is that all your cop alert systems respond, and it talks about officer down, and it says there's no contact with the officer at all, and it gives a location of Morton Alley. It doesn't seem to be a police communication. It seems to be more of a citizen saying police down, and it is in a place just across town from you, called Morton Alley, and I think that'll be a suitable place just to take a quick 5-minute break, because I know people like to have a stand up and a walk around. So if you're watching the stream, thank you very much. I hope you're enjoying it, and come back in about 10 minutes time when we see what the superheroes can find in the wonderful Morton Alley, where there's been a report of a cop down. So we will be back in about 10 minutes exactly. See you soon.
I'm taking this off. I'm
This video is sponsored by the Design Mechanism, the makers of Mythras. Mythras is a registered trademark of the Design Mechanism Inc., used with permission, all rights reserved. And we are back. Welcome back, everyone. Yeah, we've all stuffed our faces with various food and drinks of the non-alcoholic version. Well, I have, in any case. I've got a nice cup of coffee there, and we are off. And well, the previous section of the game finished with the heroes getting a cop's call from a citizen that said officer down in a place called Morton Alley, which I've sort of like placed onto the map. And yeah, so you're all at Harriet's apartment at the moment. What would you like to do?
We need to be walking and talking, guys. Let's make our way to Morton Alley as quick as we can.
Let's go.
Okay then. Hare, I just need to know, are you keeping your speed down to the others, or are you heading off by yourself? Because you can go a lot faster, can't you? Well, actually, Leonard, you can as well.
Yeah, Leonard wants to do a quick calculation using an ordnance survey or whatever it is equivalent now, to see whether or not it will be quicker to go as the crow flies rather than following the streets, and whether or not it will be advantageous for him to assume a different form to travel there via flight.
Yeah, well, obviously, flying anywhere as the crow flies is quicker than going around the streets. But as for it being advantageous, whether or not you assume a different form, that would be down to you.
Mm-hmm.
How are we traveling? By foot or?
Well, it would be probably up to you currently, since nobody else has mentioned it. I assumed you were going everywhere by foot. But I think you will probably travel a lot faster by foot in any case.
Yeah.
If you were more to piggyback.
I don't know if I'm strong enough to do that. The Mortician has a lot of...
That would just be for the comical factor of you running down the hill carrying...
Okay,
but here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to be... You guys, if you need to get a cab, you need to get a cab. I'm going to be going right on over there, and I just start sprinting down. We gotta stay fast.
Okay.
We're about here, and we need to be here.
Correct. Yeah.
Right.
Leonard's thing is that there's a human life in danger, especially with cop down. He'll do a quick calculation. This Morton Alley, is it anywhere close to the vicinity that Harriet disappeared?
It's probably in the general area. It's not the alleyway.
Okay, that's fine. We didn't know whether or not he was looking to see whether or not it was a cop that had gone to investigate the disappearance.
Right. Is Leonard going in vaporous form?
Yeah, so again, just like the 3D printer, you just sort of like disappear.
Okay.
And then he's off. He's gonna fly. He's gonna try to keep away from any strong magnetic sources, so he won't fly near a power station or anything like that.
Yeah, well, there's nothing like that in Brigadier Bay. Probably
Mortimer's going to bring his cloak around him so it looks more like a coat than a cloak, and pull his cowl over and raise his hand and go, "Taxi!"
Yeah, and hopefully grab a ride there. So Hare and Golem, you will arrive roughly at the same time. The Golem taking the vaporous form approach, and Hare dashing through the streets, making sure that every now and again you go down an alleyway, and sort of like the bits of paper in on the ground or sort of go and just sort of like leaves a bit of a flutter in your wake, and anybody who's sort of like walking by suddenly feels that gush of wind as you speed past, and you sort of like run round the corner and to the alley and sort of like slow up just as you see the golem Leonard sort of like printing himself out. So like from the foot upwards.
As he does, you do notice that his t-shirt's changed colour, and there's a different saying on it. It now says, "Violence is the last refuge of the incompetent."
Okay, and of course now the alleyway is quite dark. There's you can hear sort of like down into the alleyway. It's just between two buildings. There's got the trash cans or the dumpsters either side. And could you both of you make a perception roll for me? You both hear something. It's just the amount of detail that you hear. Nice. So Leonard, you both hear the sound of trash cans being knocked over, and it seems as if somebody's sort of like rampaging down there, and sort of like you hear bash, and then a few minutes later another bash, and Leonard, due to your excellent role there, your nanonites pick up, checking all the different frequencies. It actually picks up the sound of human moaning. It's sort of like going, oh, 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 like that. And every now and again, there's almost like a guttural sound as if they're in pain but trying to subdue it. Mort, you're in your taxi, and they said, "Morton Alley, fast as you can." And he says,
like, yes. Have you heard about the latest thing on the news?
And he sort of like goes, "Yes, I'm Batman."
Yes.
And goes driving off. There's an extra $1 in if you make it in quick.
No.
Yeah, and he sort of like goes flying off. Yeah, so Leonard and Hare, sorry, Gollum and Hare, what would you like to do?
As soon as Leonard can hear the moaning coming down from the alley, he's once again he's going to he's going to start heading down the alley. How much light is there coming down from it?
It's only the light from the road. But you figure out that as you go down the alley, your eyes will come accustomed to the dark, and you'll be able to see something. It's not that it's pitch black. It's not like a darkness spell. It's more that it's just sort of like subdued lighting down there. So you're heading on down the alleyway.
Yeah, he's going to head down the alleyway. He's looking at, there's an innocent down there that is in danger, so he's heading down there, but he's keeping a close eye out for any danger that might affect him, but he's also looking for things that he can animate into.
Yeah, okay.
So it has to be some type of construction material. So
yeah, well, like the ground or the wall or the trash can. So there's plenty of that around. Yeah. So you sort of like start heading down. Hare, what's your plan?
I'd like to draw my extendable or equip my extendable quarterstaff, and I'd like to head down the alley with kind of since my character has the passion for acting without thinking, I'd like to, if anything jumps out, I'm going to smack it as hard as I can.
Yeah. Okay, then, are you using your speed to go down the alleyway? Because you can naturally get down to the end before Leonard does, if you wish.
I'd like to go a little bit faster / ahead of Leonard, so that if anything jumps out to attack, I can get the first hit and protect him. But I don't want to like be sprinting all the way down and losing him.
So you sort of like head off down the alley, both of you. Sort of like Leonard, you're sort of like busy looking around, trying to pick up things that you could actually morph into and take control of. And you notice that head sort of like goes like that, and a staff goes. As it comes down, and Hair's likely to, a bit like Shitara off Thundercats, probably flips it round her head a few times and then brings it out so it's tucked behind her arm. And as you go further and further down the alley, you're about halfway down when you're out of the bright lights of the street, and your eyes become much more accustomed to the dark, and you can definitely see that down near the end of the alley is what appears to be, well, you're not too sure what it is. It's definitely, the base of it is definitely human. But you notice that it's got almost like jagged bone spurs have almost like erupted from the person's back and sort of like out from one of the shoulder. It's almost as if something's inside trying to escape, and it's just sort of like seems to be pushing these bone spurs out. It's not like Wolverine's things. It's more sort of like big chunks of, it's a bit like stalactites and stalagmites being pushed out of the skin, and it's not going in such a way that it's manifesting itself into something. It's definitely that something's inside almost getting out. And as you get so you could see it, you can see that it's wearing the tattered uniform of a policeman, and it's sort of like it's down on all fours, sort of like back arch, as something sort of like erupts out of its back, and it sort of like lets out a huge moan, and you notice that the trash cans are all scattered completely everywhere, and just it's sort of like he rears up and sort of like lets out a subdued cry as this thing pushes itself up, and then he turns round and he sees you there. You notice that his face is sort of like completely glistening damp with sweat, and there's sort of like saliva sort of like dribbling out of his mouth, and his eyes seem to almost like burn red at you, and he sort of like sees you there, and he turns around and he just growls at you. And we will dive into some initiatives, please. Now I'll bring the initiative order up here. Can you see that there?
Yeah, I got turn order. Yeah.
So I'll just add you in. So there's here. There's Golom, and I will call this the officer, just for this sake, and then I'll put round up here and turn there, and I'll just move those up to the top. So if you would like to roll your initiative, you can either roll it on your characters. Can you actually click in there, and put your own in?
I can't.
Okay, I can do it. 25, and Golom, yours is
22.
22. Sorry, it's because you both got roughly the same L's at the beginning. Right, let me just, oops, I just need to find, and at that point my thing says not responding.
Oh, hell in a handcart.
I know. Hang on, I can do it from here. Officer. asking me to sign in, for crying out loud? But I'm nearly there. Don't worry. But right, I've got it. Thank you. Just roll my D10. And right, and officer is going on a 23. So this is round 1, and this is turn 1. And Hare, you are going first. What would you like to do?
Well, my intention is to hit, because that was what I was going in here, hit anything that moves. But I have a question about my powers to make sure that it's something I could use, maybe. It's the power Rabbit Run, Enhanced Speed. Spend 2 power points to initiate a charge attack at the end of a single turn of movement, and affect 1 additional target while charging through contact for each additional 1 power point spent.
Yeah.
Is this a situation where I could use that?
Yeah, so normally a charge would require you to run right the way through the round, and you attack at the end with an added damage bonus. But with your superpower, you can actually charge in a turn. So you can actually dash in on turn 1 as your movement and do your attack there and then.
Okay. Am I at that distance where I would need to do a good old charge to?
Yeah, because you're out of combat, so you would either have to, no matter what, you're going to have to move into combat thing. But you can actually spend those power points and rush in if you so desire.
That is exactly what I want to do. I'm going to spend my 2 and put my rabbit feet on and
Excellent.
Run right in.
So all of a sudden, Leonard, you notice that the Hare. Well, what does it look like, Hare, as it happens?
I imagine the power isn't very flashy at all. It's just suddenly I just zoom right forward, or just spring on my feet, very nimble and acrobatically moving at an astounding rate.
Yeah, fantastic. A bit like Gambit with his staff. You go so you rush in, and then you'll make your charge attack in the same action. So roll your to hit with your staff.
I love the name of this style that you gave here.
Fast and Furious. I didn't give it. That's right from the things. That's a wonderful thing. Yeah. So you hit. He doesn't have. He's not able. He doesn't take any defensive. Oh, hang on a minute. He has an armed combat, which is that. So let me just roll my dice roll. So he sort of like tries to bat you off as you make your attack, but your staff, what size is your staff, does it say? I think it's medium.
It is medium with reach long?
Yeah, so reach, when we play Breaking the Habit, reach is a different set of rules. So basically what reach means is that if we were playing it now, you can hit me because you've got a long reach. If I try to hit you, I would damage your staff.
Gotcha.
Because my arms are in. If I want to hit you, I then have to move closer to you, but then your weapon does less damage to me once I'm close in. So
gotcha.
And changing range like that is an action point. So so you dash in, and he sort of like parries the blow, but you need to do some damage for me.
Pow.
So I will take half that. So hit location, sorry, as well.
Oh, yeah, my bad. I'm not normally a fighter, guys.
I know. This.
You just want me to roll D20?
1d20, yeah.
Because I don't know what this guy looks like. He's a whole mess of limbs. And
9. So you come round and you sort of like flip your staff underneath him or over the top of him to try to hit his abdomen, to try to whack it on the back. And he sort of like sees you coming and manages to roll slightly out the way as he tries to parry a blow. And he does make it slightly out, but a lot of your blow actually comes down onto him. And you notice that your staff hits something, and you suddenly realize that it's not flesh what you've just hit. It actually hits on the underneath his shirt, his officer's uniform, but there's quite a sharp bang, as if he's got some kind of armor underneath there. And yeah, that's your turn over, and it's my turn next. And he sort of like now retaliates to that, and brings his arm round, and you suddenly realize that you think he's going to hit you with just a fist, but then you notice that one of these bone spurs have grown out the back of his arm, and he's not holding it like Wolverine. His hand is so sort of like all distorted and broken as it sort of like come out, and it's almost like it's come out of this way, and this hand is now sort of like limp, as if it sort of like snapped the wrist as it comes down, and he sort of like just wheels it round at you. And he just sort of like, you see it coming and make a slight move backwards as he whizzes it past you, and you sort of like see, you're quite used to seeing things in slow motion, and gives you plenty of time in misses. You can, if you wish, make a parry, and if you're successful, you would have a defensive critical if you wanted to use it.
A defensive critical?
A defensive special, sorry.
Oh yeah,
but it would take up an action point.
I'm gonna let it pass. I'm gonna keep my actions.
Okay then. So that's the officer finished. Golem, you're up.
How far away is the officer from Leonard?
Yeah, so you
Is he within sort of like 15 meters?
Is it an attack that you wish to do?
No, I want to animate, but my plan is to try to animate the concrete, to try to catch him within it as I sort of like come up into my golem form, to try to knock him off balance, but not affecting.
Right. So normally, yes.
Like if I can come up behind him, sort of like come up from the ground into my golem form, it's like 2 cubic meters of the substance that I need.
Yeah, so it'll take you, I presume it takes you a turn to assume the form.
Yes.
Yeah, so you will assume the form straight away, and so you would sort of like take the form of the concrete first, and then it would be like, so that's one turn, so it's a bit like Mythras. Then you would then have to do your movement. Is there a range for what you can animate?
I can animate a substance within 15 meters of myself.
Okay, so you can use the turn to send your nanobots out, and it sort of like goes into the concrete behind him, and then it's sort of like you will animate yourself up into some kind of golem behind him, and that'll be your turn. You don't need to roll for that. Do you use power for that? I think you.
Yes, yeah. The power point is determined by what material. So the higher the material, the more power point. So I'm going to take it. It's going to be primarily concrete that I'm going up for. So it's going to take 4 power points.
Okay then. So you can take that off, and you sort of like, so here you see the golem suddenly appear in this this concrete shape, and that's the end of turn 1. So we're on to turn 2, and Hare, you're up.
Music.
Yeah, sorry about that. 2 questions really quick. Is standing up from being prone considered a move action?
Yes.
Okay, that's good to know. And second, when I hit with my staff, you said it didn't feel fleshy. Is it more like a metallic feel, or is it more like a bony,
a crunchy chitin sort of like sound? It definitely seems to have bone plate on.
Well, I am going for another Fast and Furious strike with my staff. Here's the roll.
That will hit. Let me just. And he manages to block it again with a bone spur. So I need location then damage.
All right, here is location. And I'd like to use a free action for this turn to say something at the end of this. If I may.
Cool. So in is 7.
Oh my gosh, I think that's my max damage.
So hang on, I just need to. Do you know, I'm surprised you didn't augment your first rush, by the way, with act before thinking. Can you see that?
That's a good point. But I did still hit anyways.
Yeah, because that would have added 20% of that onto it.
True. I forgot about that.
Might have even been a critical. What location was it? 7. Oh,
yeah.
That's in his abdomen again, and this time it actually, you feel it. You almost like whack your staff down again, and you definitely hear the crack of bone shattering underneath him, and he sort of like gives out like a howl as he sort of like whacks down on him. That's 8. Okay, cool. And that's your attack done. Officer has blocked, attacked, block. Yeah, so he's now out of actions. Golem, you're up.
So the golem's now animated itself.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the golem just sort of like puts both its fists together, raises it above his head, and just brings it down as two sort of like concrete boulders just whack onto this officer from behind.
Yeah. Cool.
It's going to be an unarmed combat attack roll.
That hits. It would be easy in any case because he doesn't actually.
Now it's a bit weird with the damage, but I'm going to take it that my damage is whatever my construct material is.
Yeah. Plus
my damage modifier.
Okay. So just to let you know, I need special, location, and damage.
Okay, so I want to do, my special is going to be stun location.
Okay, cool.
And the damage, location is going to be a D20, isn't it?
Yeah, a D20.
The location is 7.
Which is his abdomen again.
Okay, so my damage modifier is 1d6. The type of construct that I am is concrete, which would be an armor value and a base damage of 4. So I'm going to do 1d6 plus 4.
1d6 plus 4. Go for it.
6 points.
6 points from the thing. So if the blow overcomes armor points, the defender must make an endurance roll versus your original attack. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So your original attack was 57. He makes it. He actually makes it.
Is it opposed?
Oh no! Yeah, sorry. No, you're right. You would win because you've got the highest one. So you sort of like bring down. How much do you do? 6 points of damage.
Yeah.
Blow to the torso causes a defender to so you whack this down, and he's just sort of like crack his back, and he sort of like flops down to the ground. How many? 6. So he's actually out of it for 6 turns now. Or the original attack roll or location is incapacitated for the number of turns equal to his damage inflicted. A blow to the torso causes the defender to stagger winded, only able to defend. So you sort of like knock him, and he sort of like goes down on the ground, and you hear this snap and this sort of like crunch of bone as you sort of like bring these 2 huge, almost like concrete blocks down onto the officer, and that will finish turn 2. Turn 3. Hair, I don't think you have any left.
Oh, I was kind of curious about that because my action points as given were action points 2 parentheses 3.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure when the parentheses situation comes up.
Is there a form that you have that, for example, I normally have 2 unless I'm in Golem form, in which case I have 3. Can you go into sort of like a mad cat form where all of a sudden you're sort of like a berserk form, but for moving really, really fast?
Oh, I found it. Yeah, I can spend power points to get that extra action point, but it can only be used for reactive actions.
Yeah.
Right,
So,
which would be parrying, correct?
yeah.
No?
Reactive is counterspell, evade, interrupt, or parry, but you can only interrupt if you have delayed your action previously.
Gotcha.
So if you had stood there and said, I'll delay my action, and then if anything comes through the door to fire, I'll interrupt it by throwing myself in front of him and using your protect innocent, then
Gotcha.
that would be a thing. So you would just have 2, won't you?
Yeah, in this case, I would just have 2.
Yeah. Okay then. So
Weird question though. Say I used a point of luck right now to buy an action point. Would it be the same scenario where I couldn't use it to interrupt, but I could use it to parry or evade?
If you use it for luck, you can use it for any action at all.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
I think that's the case in any case, because I know Gulliver's done it in the past.
What's that? Sorry.
If you buy an action via luck, it doesn't need to be reactive, doesn't it?
No. It is a proper action.
Yeah. So
Gotcha.
yeah.
Gotcha.
So yeah. So do you wish to use a point of luck?
No.
No.
I was just curious. I wanted to know.
Okay. So go. Officers out. Golem. Do you have any actions left?
It's dubious. When I started out, I had 2 actions, but when I went into Golem form, I get 3 actions. So
yeah. So you would have used. So
my first action would have been as Leonard.
Yeah. So therefore, you would have. So basically, you add 1 when you go into Golem form. So you would have had 2 to start off with. You used 1 of them up to go into Golem. So you would have had 1 of those left. You've used that 1, but you'll now have enough 1 because you're in Golem form.
Okay. Seeing what he's just whacked down with his big fists, is it possible for me to make the way that you described it, these things sort of like came out of the officer? Is it possible for me to use a first aid or a medicine check to see whether or not the damage that these things did would be enough to kill enough to kill the officer?
Okay, roll.
It was taken over.
Roll your medicine roll. So you're just using your action to do a skill. It doesn't look like he's in any control of this, and you figure eventually there would be very little of him left if it continues. And then that takes us into round 2. So 6 seconds have gone by now, Mort. So you've just hailed a car, and you're in the taxi and it's on its way.
I'm enjoying that music. And it's like
it's sort of like it's an umber.
The traffic these days. The traffic is terrible.
It's not a
You have a mum called Martha.
What's that? What's that? Traffic. What's those taxis called?
They're just yellow cabs or Ubers.
No, Johnny Fives or something.
No.
Johnny Five. No.
The ones that we have in York now that are taking money off other people. Ubers. Yeah, it's sort of like an Uber cab, but
The ones where you never know if you can get there because you might get killed on the way.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So you're sort of like going, and you can see the guy keeps sort of like looking up at the.
Concentrating the road.
He said, "Where to, sir?"
I'll double the fee if you get me to Martin Alley as quick as you can.
Yeah.
Don't spare the lights.
Yeah, and
danger afoot.
So round 2, turn 1, Hare, you're up.
Let's see. I'm here to waste that monster's actions and hit really hard. So I'm going to swing my staff as hard as I can. As I'm still in combat with.
You certainly are. Yeah.
Okay. I just want to make sure when the cement blocks came down, I didn't step back or anything. Swing.
Critical. He rolls. Hang on, because I've gone on to. There was another really good character called Eclipse. Did you see?
I almost chose that character because of the name. Yeah.
Yeah. She. Just to let you know, her power is darkness. So she absorbs it. She makes things eclipse.
Yeah.
So it suddenly goes intensely black. I'm just seeing whether or not I've succeeded in my attack roll. And no, he's failed. So you will have two specials. Include one could be a crit. Now.
I'm okay. Forgive me if this is wrong. Would I be able to do choose location, abdomen, and max damage?
Yes.
Yeah, then that's what I'm going to do.
Because your max damage is critical, I think, and choose location is just normal. Yeah. So go for it. So your so just roll your damage.
I believe the max is just 8, but let's just double check where my character sheet go. Let's just check. Yeah, it would be 8 because I don't have a damage modifier.
Okay, yeah, because you only get that. So that's 4 points of. Right, and you sort of like you feel the crunch of chitin or bone again, but you definitely whack it hard enough to actually. You probably do one of those things that you twirl round and use the momentum of the staff, and then cratch it with 2 hands and then like bring it down onto the same area that the golem smashed beforehand, and there's this almighty crunch. And the officer who was trying to get up suddenly gets pushed down to the ground, and he seems to be stationary there. But one thing that you do notice, both Golem and Hare, he sort of like seems to be almost like twitching, and almost like fitting a bit, and you notice that. The bone sort of like spurs are not now sort of like shooting out. They're sort of like going like that, and you can see them both from looking down. Your Leonard, your immediate, your previous vision of this is that he's slowly. This is going to kill him. And yes, Golem, it's your turn.
Does it look like they're forming into anything else?
No. It just looks like... It's a bit like... Think about a parasitic wasp that's laid an egg inside a caterpillar. And it's just sort of like... It's almost like...
bursting out.
Yeah, it's almost like it's calcified the inside of him. And sort of like... turning him into just a bony mass, and it's just sort of like shooting out left, right, and center. Is there anything you would like to do?
Does he? Yeah, Golem wants to bring his foot up and just bring it down on his head.
Okay, then. Yeah.
He's looking at the thing that.
So this will be an automatic hit.
This thing is killing the person inside, and there's no way. So he just wants to bring it to a quick end.
Yeah. So roll
before he suffers anymore.
Yeah. So roll your damage and roll your hit your skill just to see whether or not you get a critical. No, so you naturally choose location with your special and go for the head and sort of like whack your foot down it. Oh, ouch. And do 9 points of damage. Yeah, and you just sort of like lift your huge sort of like cement concrete foot, and you see this as well, Hare, and the golem just sort of like brings it down and sort of like hits the head, and the head just goes, and there's sort of like, it doesn't pop. It almost like as if it's some kind of egg being shattered, and there's a bit of ichor and sort of like fluid come out of it. But the golem just sort of like squashes it flat. Yeah.
And then in from Golem, but in Leonard's voice, the Golem goes, "Suffer no more."
I can't imagine he is. I take out my phone. I want to take some pictures on my smartphone to send to my brother Franklin. He might know some stuff about this creature.
Just both of you roll a perception roll for me. So both of you have succeeded in a hard roll. So there's various things that you notice on this character. The first thing that you notice is that his sidearm is missing from his holster. It's definitely not in there. And the other thing that you notice is that because you got a hard perception roll, you both notice that there's 3 empty shell cases around in the general area. You also notice that he's a typical police officer. So just to remind you, things like he's got a badge on him, and he's also got like a body cam on him as well.
Okay, so I'm currently in Golem form, which I can't hold for too long. I want to stop my animated form and go into vaporous form. But as I do, I want to actually go into the body cam, the body cam camera, and do ghosting machine.
Yeah, roll your
and then have a look at, as a computer.
Yeah, cool. Just roll your computer roll, and that's a savant skill, isn't it? So it's one level easier. Cool, thank you. Do you want me to give you the information now, or do you want to wait till you get outside so it's shared with everybody?
My idea is to get as much of the information as I can and upload it into as part of my neural network.
Okay.
Into the nanobot, and then once I've got that, I don't know how long it'll take. I want to come back into my normal Leonard form.
Yeah, and then you could probably replay it on your iPad that actually manifests itself. Hare, is there anything that you would like to do?
Yes, I'd like to. Seeing that Lenny's going to do his thing, I'll just make my way to the entrance, pace about very impatiently, and wait for Morty to arrive so I can hail him down, bring him in the alley.
Yeah, so Mort arrives on the scene, and then you sort of like go back to the area of the devastation, and Leonard, you've now actually got the body camera footage, and it's from POV, so it's from his point of view, and it shows him walking down the alleyway.
With gun drawn or not?
Yes, with gun drawn, and he's sort of like he seems to be looking around, and he's sort of like, you can tell that the camera's moving side to side. And then he automatically, there's no sort of like sound captured on it. And he sort of like all of a sudden flips round, and you can see him leveling this gun at this sort of like large figure. that seems to have a massive arm. I'll show you a picture in a second, with sort of like these bones things out of it, sticking out of him. And he sort of like swings at this officer, and you can see that the gun fires off 3 shots that don't seem to it seemed to hit this thing, and just sort of like ricochets to the ground. And what happens, you see this one of these bone spurs suddenly go off camera, and it's as if it's attacked him down his side somehow. And then you notice that the body camera then sort of like flips over to one side, as if the guy's sort of like falling down. And then it's just sort of like it's as if you see another sort of like spur come round, and it just seems to catch the camera, and the lens shatters and stops recording.
Can I cross-reference the time that's on the cam footage to when we got there to see what was the time difference approximately, i.e. how long had he been down before we got...
You probably think that he was probably dead. And then this happened, and then you see the beasts sort of like walking down the alleyway.
Do we see the beast walking away?
You just you see the guy fall down, the officer falls down, then the camera is broken, and you don't see any more footage. But you do see something. I'm just saving it now, so I'll be 2 seconds, and then I'll be able to show you what you actually see. I just need to save it in the right place. Information. There you go. I have to be careful what I call it, because otherwise, can you see?
Call it Peter.
Say again, sorry.
Don't call it Peter.
I called it Max. Mortician, you've arrived.
Wonderful. What's happened? Where's the officer?
There's an officer. We found him. We beat the tar out of him because he was trying to kill us with spikes and all sorts of organic things. We broke his abdomen, and now Lenny is inside of a body cam trying to figure out stuff or mess around. I don't know what he's really doing.
Well, who called cops?
No idea.
Actually, I believe it was said that it was a civilian cop call.
It was. Okay, can you see?
Well, that is a monster.
You not enhance? Oh, I can enhance it.
I bet he has no friends.
Oh.
Jeez, that right arm.
Can I?
I think that right arm's holding somebody else's face. It's the fist, isn't it, holding like a cloak with like, looks like my cloak. Oh my God, it's my cloak!
See, you've taken it off and he's grabbed it.
I know! I just pronounced I was too hot, you know.
Yeah, so that's what you see that has attacked the officer. Yeah, so you, Mort and Hare, you can go back down the alleyway. Does anybody wish to inspect the body at all?
I will have a look at it if that's okay, using my medical skill.
Yeah, roll your medicine. Is it medicine or first aid?
I've got medicine.
Okay then, yeah.
Would that be appropriate? I've got both, so.
Yeah, either, or it's completely up to you. Which I would go with whichever is the highest.
Highest, yeah.
Golem, you've also because you've been. Oh wow. I'm glad you're not rolling like this in the fantasy setting.
Well, I'm not glad I'm not.
So you sort of like crouch down over the body,
It was
and
Moriarty.
you notice that there is like a puncture wound underneath his sort of like left armpit. And you notice that it's as if something's been injected into there, and you notice all the skin round it is all sort of like veiny, as if some kind of poison. Has sort of emanated from. Golan, while you're down there, because you've got the advantage of the cam footage now, you do notice that the pistol, his firearm, is just some distance away. It's as if it's just been sort of like knocked out of his hand.
Is there any enhancement that I could do on the foot, on the body cam, to try to get any more information about this beast thing?
More than the picture?
Well, I'm thinking it looks almost like human. I didn't know whether or not I could, improve the picture quality of the face to maybe run sometime later a facial recognition to see whether or not it was somebody else before.
Okay, then roll a computer skill. Okay, then I'll keep that.
I haven't got anything to run it through at the moment, but as something to run later on. I didn't know whether or not I could maybe get facial pointers to be able to run on a.
He looks pretty bony rather than human.
Yeah.
There's no signs of any gang signs on the clothes that remain on him.
No, nothing at all. But yeah, it definitely looks like he was wearing something beforehand. That has now sort of like
just out of interest. I mean, I'm assuming that Leonard's going to tell us what's on the camera.
Yeah.
There'll be a timestamp on that camera, like Leonard's already said. Would that correspond? What I'm trying to say is, did we get the call after this had happened or before?
Yeah, Leonard's already done that. And
oh, sorry.
It happened, and then the call.
We got the call after it happened. That's fine.
Which direction did it go off in?
So if you saw from the picture, he was leaving the alleyway as the footage sort of like went.
So the opposite end to where we came in.
Yeah.
Leonard will say to well, actually, no. He'll check his neural interface for cop reports to see whether or not there's been any reports of sightings of something that might match its description, and if so, whereabouts in the city. For example, if it had walked out of the alley onto the main street, maybe somebody would have.
Yeah, there appears to be there's no other cop alerts related to describing this beast at all. You do hear sirens obviously coming to this place at the moment, because the cops have decided to they don't normally take active interest in citizens, but it's likely that somebody else has maybe reported gunshot fires, bullets being fired. So you know that the police are on their way.
And correct me if this isn't how things are done in this world, but since we got our cop alert on our network and me on my phone, would it be appropriate to respond now and say problem solved, weird creature down? Anybody know anything about take a picture of bone spurs, this kind of thing? Would that be appropriate? Or
I mean, it's completely up to you whether or not you broadcast it across the cop network. So if you broadcast something like that, anybody with a cop device, and remember it's a free app, so
it would be like the chances are that the criminals.
Well, yeah, of course.
Well. It's like a what do you call it? thing that you have in the UK that you can monitor the police bands.
Yeah,
with.
police frequency.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you can guarantee that if there was a major disturbance over the other side of the bay, then, you can guarantee that all the criminal types will pick that up and go and rob something on the opposite side of the bay. Because
Interest, and this is purely out of character, but from your description at the start of it, that a whole lot of people now have superpowers, and are things like this a common occurrence? I mean, to me, this sounds out of the ordinary, but to Leonard, is this something that this type of thing happens all the time?
There are two groups of heroes in the world at the moment, a bit like the X-Men. So there's really people out there to do good with their superpowers, and there's also people out there to do bad with.
So this could be the MO of.
There's probably
this super villain who looks for cops, lures them down an alley, and then, consumes them and turns them into one of his minions.
Yeah.
For a period of time.
It could be. There's only, for example, the only superheroes in this area are the superheroes in this group. So you assume that the Tortoise, and there was another one called Talk, and Eclipse are off doing something else, and you're the other three. So it's not, everybody's married to a superhero. It's still in the minority. Yeah. You do have there's still the badge on the ID badge on the officer that I mentioned before. If anybody wants to do anything with that.
Well, what could we do with a badge? Well, would I be able to roll? Streetwise doesn't sound right.
Well, if he was a bad cop, then Streetwise would certainly show you that.
I want to do that then. I want to see specifically the level of corruption.
Okay. Yeah.
Not bad.
Can I help him with that and augment his role?
Could I use a point of luck to?
Hang on. So what's your? Who's got the highest roll between?
I've got 76.
So you're actually higher than the Hare.
Group here.
Is that right? Is Hare's 51?
Yes.
Yeah. So it would be better if Mortician rolled and Hare you augmented it.
Sounds good to me.
So you'll need 20% of that, which should be 10.
10.2.
Yeah.
So if I just roll in at 10 then.
Yeah. So if you put 10 in the temporary.
Oh, that's right. Sorry.
Because it ups the whole skill, so
Yes,
you're more
of course.
chance of getting a critical because of that. Yeah, nice. So there's you two sort of like find the ID, and naturally it's got the officer's name on, and his name is Officer Jones. Totally original. And you sort of like both of you sort of like have a discussion about it as Leonard, you're probably doing something that you were talking
Leonard
about.
actually, once he's done his thing, he's sort of like just stood there.
Yeah.
Because he's almost like turning into Golem takes a lot out of him.
Yeah, cool.
So he's regenerating his nano circuitry.
Okay, cool. And yeah, you both the Hare and Mort, you sort of like have this discussion backwards and forwards, and you sort of like remember things that various contacts have said, and you both sort of like come to the same conclusion that there is, or as you look at the body, was an Officer Jones who was labelled as a dirty cop in the Bay Area, basically meaning that he wasn't. He would he would quite easily turn a blind eye for the right amount of money, and etc. etc.
Well, that's no good, but that makes sense.
It does. Maybe one gang's cleaning house, or maybe he asked the wrong questions in the wrong place, or wanted too much money.
Well, if you ask for money once, I'm sure they're going to ask for money again.
Yeah, maybe he saw something, and maybe he wanted too much money that somebody's willing to pay for it.
True. Lenny, did you say something over there, Lenny?
Are we assuming that he didn't come down here on police business?
Well, I presume he's on business if he's in uniform, but if he's a dirty cop, he might, I don't know. You know how cops are.
And this has relevance to Harriet's disappearance. How?
Well, it doesn't. We got the call that we came across. Unless maybe we're close to where the bag was dropped. Maybe he knows where the bag is, or knew where the bag was. I don't know. And maybe he was like, nah, maybe there's too many maybes.
Yeah, Lenny, any idea how far we are from the point where the purse is dropped?
It's about 5 or 10 minutes walk from here. It's not far away, but it would probably, hang on, I'll show you. This here was the alleyway. Can you see it here?
Gotcha.
And we'll say the apartment is further north than that, just to make it easier.
Maybe we should bounce on over there before the police show up? Unless you all want to stick around to talk to the police about this body and not look for a missing girl.
No, I agree. Leonard, did you see anything on the camera that maybe this monster had taken something from this body, or not? He just killed him and walked away.
No, nothing stood out. It seemed to be that they
I thought you were going to put Gulliver's voice on there.
When you're thinking about the next action, and then all of a sudden
a pool of water appears in your hand.
No.
Don't mention.
No.
Sugarwood has had great acclaim about his summoning spell on the Mythras Reddits.
Oh.
They even mention him by name. Well,
put an extra G in it.
Yeah, 2 G's on it.
Gulliver. 2 G's.
Yeah. Gulliver.
What do you call it? What was Big's character called?
Briggs.
Briggs, yeah.
Briggs.
Stutter.
Brilliant.
There was nothing. I take it there was nothing on the camera foot. No, he's going to say no. There was nothing that actually came to my attention about that it was actually carrying anything.
The trash cans up and down this alleyway, isn't there?
Yeah.
Yes, I can see them there.
Yeah. So if we, what I'd like to do is, as we walk out the alleyway, I'd like to casually just lift up the lids of the trash cans, put them down, look inside.
Okay.
To see if the thing was left. I've got this hunch. It's completely wrong, but I've got a hunch that maybe this cop had found the purse, gone to trade it off.
So this is going to how far down the trash cans are you looking?
No, I mean until we go out, because we're going to go out the exit outwards. So.
I meant, so you take the trash can lid
off.
off.
So how deep?
Yeah.
And just the top, because if he's going to just dump something, he would literally just open and drop. Okay, I would have thought.
So make a perception roll for me.
Certainly.
Yeah, so you start to, I presume the hair and go along, you're sort of like following along as well as more sort of like goes.
Have we stopped for food again?
Yeah, and you sort of like start walking back, sort of like lifting up the trash cans, looking in there, and then going to the other side, and you're doing this down the alleyway, and you don't find anything in any of the trash can apart from trash. But it's at this point that the first cop car arrives and sort of like sees you guys coming out of the alley, and they sort of like draw their pistols and sort of
My
like
next,
level.
sorry, my next question is, are we treated as vigilantes here?
Well,
Or do we have a working relationship with the police?
well, I think that's up to you to decide, because you have you're just coming out of an alley where there was a report of officer down. So they sort of like, the cop car sort of like arrives and they see all three of you coming out, and they sort of like level their pistols at you and say, "Freeze! Hands up! Hands up!"
Leonard puts his hands up.
Yep. So I'll put my hands up too, and I'll be like, "It's all right, officer. We were responding to a call."
Hands up, and if I can, I'll de-extend my quarter.
Yeah, you probably had done that and tucked it into your
I was hoping so.
belt, and he sort of like one sort of like keeps his pistol sort of like trained on you, and the other one sort of like skirts past, and sort of like
As he sort of like goes past, Leonard does say, if I may, we heard the disturbance from down the
he sort of like start to talk, and he's just sort of like, shut up, don't give me a reason. And you sort of like hear from down the alleyway, sort of like, oh my god, and he sort of like the other guy, sort of the other cop comes up, and he sort of like demands for your identification, which you hand over, and you're registered.
Leonard's going to say, as he hands it over, if you would kindly check the body cam footage.
Yeah, and you sort of like hand over your identification, and they sort of like look at it, and they sort of like say, "Oh, you're one of those. Is this your doing?"
We were merely responding to a call for distress.
Cop alert.
Yes. So, who took the officer down?
Well, it seems that whatever that bony thing in it took it down, but then brought it back up, and so I made sure it stayed down so that it wouldn't hurt any civilians.
I might have helped as well.
But I think I was the final.
He sort of like looks a bit puzzled, and ambulances arrive, and they're sort of like the chief inspector arrives, to sort of like carry out the investigation, and they bring some of those lights to sort of like stand up, like and garage lights, and to sort of like sign up. And once the inspector sort of like comes, he sort of like takes you over to one side and sort of like talks to you, and you sort of like relate what's happened. And he sort of like he doesn't seem to, his name's Inspector Clark, by the way. He sort of like doesn't seem to be that he doesn't seem to appreciate your sort in his Bay Area, and he sort of, but your ID sort of like check out. And after about half an hour of waiting around here, he sort of like allows you to go with strict instructions not to leave the Bay Area. He might want to question it, and it takes 4 or 5 men to carry the
calcified,
the calcified body of Officer Jones out on a stretcher, and there's this like blanket over the top of it, but it's also like it's not flat. They're sort of like stuck up at all sort of like weird angles as they sort of like think, and they sort of like have to readjust it to get it into the ambulance. And yeah, so Inspector Clark sort of like warns you not to leave the Bay Area, and you can head over to the alleyway of the stolen bag.
Yes.
Yeah, which just so you know is here. And as you're walking down, sort of like from this area, coming up from this, walking quite casually, obviously up to the main road, which is up here, a couple of what you instantly recognise as 50-seconders, and they got their bandanas on and their leather jackets on. They have certain bulges in certain places.
Can I just stop there and say, have they seen us yet?
Oh yes, this is a well lit.
Oh, so there's no dark corners I can sort of like
No, you're
absorb
walking
myself
down.
into.
No, you're walking down the road, and they're walking up to you, and every now and again they push one another. What would you like to do? You are about you're about level with this side alley there. This was the alleyway, and they're sort of like walking up from here. So
Sorry,
yeah,
so can you just click again because my
they're coming up there.
yeah.
We're there.
This is where the alleyway was, and you're directly opposite that
So
alleyway.
have they passed the alleyway yet?
No. The
Okay.
alleyway's in between you and them. They don't seem to be walking. They seem to be having a laugh, if anything else. And you notice that there's some other people walking around, and there's sort of like making fun of them and sort of like having a laugh. They look sort of like early 20s.
So it's quite a busy thoroughfare.
Well, it's not busy because now it's about 7 o'clock, but it's not empty. There are people walking around the place.
Leonard wants to slow his walk down. He basically wants to see whether or not they just walk past the entrance to the alleyway or whether or not they go down it.
Okay then, what's the rest of you doing?
I want to whisper. I'm assuming we're still a distance away, that if I say something, they won't hear.
Well, they will make a perception roll if they would like to hear it.
Yep. Okay, well, I'll whisper to Leonard and Lily to should we grab these guys and see if they know anything about the kidnapping?
May as well. Let's do it. Break some legs.
Let them go past, and then we'll take it from behind.
I know they're a member of the gang, but I don't think we can assume that just because they're a member of a gang they have anything to do with the kidnapping.
That's a
And
good point.
any of these people down the street could have had anything to do with the kidnapping. We can't just.
You're sort of like having this discussion, and of course they're carry on walking. You've slowed your pace down because Leonard slowed his pace down. So you're coming up to the corner here, and they're sort of like carry on walking past the alleyway entrance, and she sort of like sees you three stood there, and obviously they see you as a geeky human, a rather pretty girl, and this a masked, almost like a wrestler sort of like thing, and they sort of like look at you and go like that, and sort of like laugh, and one of them turns to the other one and says, "Oh look, oh, we got a wrestler. He looks like Spike Cage." Like this.
Nasty person.
No.
Get up, kid.
Spike Cage is famous. That's Big Beastie's character.
Big Beastie's wrestler.
Wrestling name. Yeah, and he sort of like looks at you all, and one of them says to you, Leonard. He says, "I'll give you a quid for your T-shirt, and throw in the girl as well." And they both sort of like laugh as if to
Say what?
"Oh no, sorry, Missy. We'll give us 50 pence, and we'll take her off your hands for you, mate."
You say that one more time, I'll take your hands off and make you eat them. So I'll shout out to them.
And they sort of like, they do the classic ooh like this at you, and look, pretty ladies, a bit of an aggro. And so one of them turns to you, Leonard, and says, "Oh, bet she's rough in bed, isn't she, with you?" Like this.
I'm going to use 3 points of my power to stare them down.
Do I get a save against it?
You do get a willpower. Yeah, unopposed willpower.
Cool. Let me just...
Leonard's going to just adjust his kipper on his head and then just look down at his feet.
Oh.
Hang on, I just need to see their stats. I got a 4. Knock off your PowerPoints, by the way. I got a 40 and a 22.
Ooh.
Yeah, I think you could see my rolls, can't you?
I can. I saw one of them. Oh, yeah, 22, 40.
Willpower, 39. So one of them succeeds. What's the impact of the...
If a failed, on their next round, they must back away to a distance, so to put a distance between them and the characters.
Okay, yeah. So how does the mortician do this?
It literally just stands there, and he just puts himself forward and just leans slightly from his waist and stares strongly at them.
All right,
with a slight rumble.
And what one of them sort of like laughing and joking, and he sort of like turns to his mate, and his mate's not there, and he sort of like started to back away, and he says, "Where you going?" He says, "Oh, I don't want to mess with that guy." And he sort of like points his shaky fingers at the mortician, and the guy.
Leonard's gonna look up at them, and then he's going to grab the bottom of his T-shirt, and he's going to lift it over his head, pulling it off. But as he lifts it over his head, another T-shirt, as he's pulling it up, another one's just appearing.
Okay.
As it comes out. So he pulls it over his head, but this other one's just appearing, and on it is written, "I do not fear computers. I fear the lack of them." And he just sort of like holds his T-shirt out, the one that he's just taken off, and say, "This T-shirt."
Are you trying to have a certain effect of it? Or are you just handing him a T-shirt?
Yes, I mean, one of the things that they asked for was the T-shirt, so I'm influencing them and saying, "There we go, there's the T-shirt."
Oh yeah, so yeah, he's sort of like takes the T-shirt, and he sort of like looks back at the other guy who's backing away, saying, "Look, he even gave us a T-shirt. Look, we've got this." Yeah, and he sort of like looks at you both. And he sort of like says, "You got anything else you can give me?" And he sort of like looks at you, Lily, and goes,
"A black eye, if you're looking for that."
And he's,
I have more advice I can give you.
He sort of like he turns round to you, Leonard, and says, "Shut up! Let's match. You can roll. I'm going to roll my influence." Just to let you know, I'm going to augment it with my passion of bullying the weak at this point in time. So if you'd like to make a willpower check. Ooh. Yeah, so
Can I use a...
well,
oh,
I
point of
fail in
luck.
any case.
Oh,
I
right.
fail in any case. So he's sort of
I
like,
want to use a point of luck to succeed.
yeah, okay then. So he sort of like says, "You shut
Yeah.
up."
And Leonard will go, my advice would be to get when the going is good.
Yeah, and he sort of like looks at you, and he's sort of like thinking, "What? What?" And he sort of like he notices that his friend's backing off a bit, and he says, "I'm only leaving because me mate wants me to go." And he sort of like starts backing off, and as he gets alongside his fellow gang member, he sort of like tugs him on his sleeve, and they sort of like turn round, and they keep sort of like glancing over their shoulders, but they're almost like walking very quickly in that sense, and they sort of like carry on down and sort of like turn down sort of like here or something, and keep looking at you, and just as he turns round, he sort of like turns around, he sort of like flips you the finger, and then just sort of like belts down, legs it like
as he sort of like does that, Leonard's going to recall his constructive nano that make up these t-shirts.
At which point, at the same time he's doing that, I'll be saying, that was a very interesting plan. Giving him a pat of yourself so you know where they're going.
It doesn't quite work that way, unfortunately.
Yeah, the nanobots come back to you, and sort of like absorb. They sort of like come around and go, and they sort of like absorb back into you. You're stood at the entrance of the alleyway, and yeah, what do you wish to do here?
Well, if we're at the alleyway, I for one want to have a good look around and see if I can see any signs of a bag. I think we're all thinking the same.
Okay then. So yeah, roll your perception roll.
Where's the closest? We could see from the footage that was on the news report that there was security cameras.
Yeah, they're sort of like police cameras or whatever. Yeah, there's no bag here at all. And from the footage, you knew that it was left out on the pavement, if you remember. And this was a whole day and night ago. So the chances of it still being here it is very rare. Very.
I don't know whether or not this will be possible, but if Leonard goes down the into the alleyway and goes into vaporous form, is it possible for him to go into one of the cameras and follow it back through the system to source, and then try to get the information from the that's stored on the hard drive there of...
And what further information would you be looking for apart from what you've already got?
Well, if the camera was looking there, I might have been able to see who had picked up the bag, whether or not it was a.
So you want to look at the footage?
I want to look at a broader section of the footage to see whether or not I could find any more information about what had happened apart from what was on the news.
Okay, then. I mean, that's going to take you some time, no matter which way you do it. But roll me a computer skill. Is there anything that Mort or the Hare would like to do? Well, Len is doing this.
Yeah, I would like to look around for any clues of I mean,
There's a big arrow on the wall that says clue.
That's right. Quest here. There was a struggle, so it'd be interesting to know if she told something off anybody, or
there's a bag lady that seems to have a question mark above her head.
That's right. Hello.
That's a question mark.
I'll click her, please.
Oh no, don't click her. If it's a question mark, you've already got the question. You need
hand it in
for the new one.
Yes. I would like to look for any signs of anything left behind from a struggle, or any signs of a struggle. You know, that sort of general. I mean, if there was a struggle, maybe she, like I say, tore something off.
Yeah, and you would have. Okay, well, roll your perception. Do I have a computer roll done?
I didn't know whether or not you were ready.
Yeah.
I'm going to use a point of luck to re-roll that, please, if I could.
Standard 69 would do.
To a fail.
Yeah, so you don't see any clues lying around the place here at all. There's no sort of like scrap of clothing. You notice from the footage, Leonard, that the bag was picked up by what appears to be a young lady walking a dog with a young child. She obviously reported it in because the police arrive on the scene shortly after that, and it sort of like ties into when you actually saw the footage on media, that obviously the police had sort of like figured out the same thing as you, and it's obvious that they've been to this area before they leaked the story, and you can see that they did an investigation, forensic CSI job on the area, and sort of like the tunnel, the alleyway as well. So what would you guys like to do? I tell you what, because we're nearly coming to the end of the session, so maybe it'll be beneficial to leave it there, and then when we get back to playing this game, you can have another think about it and see what actually happened. So what's your views about Mythras in Superhero Land?
It slips in rather nicely.
Yeah, I mean, it's very easy to accommodate the rules. I tell you what it reminds me of. Rollmaster. Do you remember you could use Rollmaster for various games?
Oh yeah, most definitely. And I think the advantage of it, I mean, here, Mort, are you a combat expert?
I'm indeed.
Yeah. So, for example, in the powers, you can have things like elemental control, which allows you to craft a specific element. So that's where your fire and stuff would go in. You get energy blast. So you
was this later on? Sorry.
No, these are powers. So there's very limited powers. For example, regeneration is regain 1 hit point to all wound locations at the start of a round, unless the area has a major wound. Now, a round lasts for 6 seconds.
That's right. Remember.
So at the end of a minute, you would have regenerated 1 point. Everything, right? So I mean, things like that. And then limits, you take detrimental thing. For example, teleport is a power. Teleport to any visible point within power in meters as a move action. Spend 2 power points to teleport up to half your power in meters, rounded up as a free action.
See, that's wonderful. That's like teleporting behind somebody.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know what other people are like, but the thing that I find really nice is that, for example, I can't hold my golem form for all that
which is really good.
time. So even doing that, manifesting by him and doing an attack and then doing another attack, I was half power.
Yeah. Now it's
Just
really
by holding
interesting.
that, but it comes back really quick.
Yeah. So it's a bit like the limitations for the power. So you need to take. Everybody should have a limitation for your power. Now it's really interesting because, for example, it says limited power. The power or boost only works under certain specific conditions or has some reduced effect determined by the game master, or in our case, determined by the game master and the player. So can you see it's not saying this is what that is. It's saying, right, this is your limitation. And vulnerability, the character takes double damage from a specific form of attack. Alternatively, the character must make a hard endurance check each turn when 5 meters of a specific substance or suffer a level of fatigue. So that's almost like the kryptonite thing, you know. And I think it really gives you the ability to develop a character, you know. And it wouldn't be, for example, if you said to me, oh, I'm really vulnerable to gold, then I would say no.
Don't get married.
Yeah. It's a limited control. With actions involving the power or boost, the character's range of critical failure increases. Normally, remember, it's 96 to 100 normally.
Yep.
90 to 100. So it's almost like wild magic surges that you sort of like think, oh, I'll do elemental control, or I lift my glasses off to fire my cyclops beam. And it goes boom, and it sort of like knocks something off. Fatal flaw. The character must consume or make contact with a substance every 4 hours, or suffer a level of fatigue.
That's like
This
the addiction in Shadowrun.
Yeah. So what must you have? What must you hold?
I have to eat food every 4 hours, or I suffer the effects. And to be honest, I read
Which
Fatal
is
Flaw and
brilliant.
thought, I die.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Because you move so fast, your metabolism burns up so much energy. That's why you need to eat.
Yeah.
Always got to keep eating chili dogs and whatnot.
But the thing I like about it is that there's literally very little powers that you can have. But it's very interesting how they actually work together. Tortoise that you saw is like he's in a metal suit.
Is that my brother, Franklin?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Franklin Alex designed robots when other kids were playing with action figures. He could count on his sister Lily to have his back. And he joined the army. But he has things like anti-gravity thrusters.
Oh, power of flight.
So he can fly. Computer overlay optical systems. Enhanced sense, sight. Spend 2 power points to gain dark sight for the rest of the scene. You know, so I think
It's a
there's
scene as well.
yeah, diamond infused polycarbonate shell. If a power is targeted by an attack, spend 2 power points as a reaction to retract it into the torso, causing the attack to miss.
That's brilliant.
And there's a
Pull my head in.
yeah. But I just think things like that, you know, is now his limiting source. His limiting.
Sorry, just to go back to tortoise and hair. It'd be brilliant, just like because I noticed Mr. Pickles was talking really, really fast when he was doing his character, which is brilliant. And you go,
Thank you.
her brother could be like, "Hello."
Yeah. Now it's interesting because the tortoise is a quadruple amputee,
Amplified.
and he has cybernetic prosthetics provided in the list. His hit points for his arms and legs reflect this permanent damage. But the interesting thing is, without his suit, that's it. He's literally can't do it.
Quadriplegic.
Yeah, breathing is
Paraplegic.
self-contained. He's immune to intense heat, cold, and pressure. So yeah, so he is. He has a gravitonic blast. So he goes poof, like that, which does, wait for it, 1d10 of damage, and his unarmed combat is 1d3 plus 1d6. So his damage modifier is absolutely fantastic. And Eclipse has things like spend 2 action points to double the flight speed, darkness control, a brightness night, control light including infrared and ultraviolet, spend 2 power points to create holograms, which require craft light if the image is complex. But she has shadow walk within 16 meters. Spend 2 power points from when making an evade check. If successful, teleport up to 8 meters away, and the character does not end up prone as a normal evade.
So literally just melt into the shadows and move across.
Yeah. And it's just sort of like, but can only use flight and light controls power after the sun has set, and can only use darkness control and teleportations power during the daylight.
You're coming out today? Nope, stay inside until that time.
Her powers switch. It reminded me of a Boom King from World of Warcraft. Because they go to either side. Yeah. So yeah.
Or Lady Hawk.
I'm glad you enjoyed it. I can see very easily to be able to play Call of Cthulhu with the rule system. I don't think there's much difference between and you have tenacity, which is your mental power. So yeah. Anything else that anybody would like to say at all before I call the game to a close? Because it's past. I've timed it perfectly well.
You have indeed. I enjoyed the taxi ride.
Yes. Yeah, and I think that would be definitely something that we would have to, if we were playing on a regular basis.
I'd have to get some transport.
Yeah. So yes, thank you for watching. If you watched us tonight, I hope you enjoyed it, and we will certainly publish this somewhere. So we don't know when we will come back to Gemini City, but we will wait and see whether or not people come back and enjoy another stay over here. Until then, I would just like to say to each and every one of you, please remember to be who you are and say what you think, because the people who mind don't matter, and the people who matter don't mind. Have fun, guys, and we will catch you all later. And until then, up, and away. We'll see you later, guys.
Thank you for watching. Bye.
Ending. Wait.